Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Guys, we have a con artist as the front runner in the Republican Party. He called me Mr. Meltdown. Let me tell you something. Last night in the debate during one of the breaks, two of the breaks, he went backstage. He was having a meltdown. First, he had this little makeup thing applying, like, makeup around his mustache because he had one of those sweat mustaches. Then he asked for a full-length mirror. I don't know why, because the podium goes up to here, but he wanted a full-length mirror. Looks like a little boy on stage. It's not that I look like a little boy. I wouldn't even be the youngest president, but he would be the oldest president ever elected. And it's like an 8-year term, so you start to worry. A tough guy. This guy inherited $200 million. He's never faced any struggle. He's never faced. The other day he told somebody, a protester, I'm going to punch you in the face. Donald Trump has never punched anyone in the face. Donald Trump was the first guy that begged for Secret Service protection. First guy. Not one tweet, 3 tweets misspell words so badly. And I only reached 2 conclusions. Number 1, that's how they spell those words at the Wharton School of Business, where he went. Or number 2, just like Trump Tower, he must have hired a foreign worker to do his own tweets. If he had not inherited $200 million right now, he would be selling watches in Times Square or be doing one of those infomercials on Saturday morning where he promises to teach you how to flip properties. It's time. The charade is up. This is a con job.
All right. This was last night. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Savage Nation. It's very depressing and it's agonizing to watch a man of such low caliber rise to such a high position and make such a disgrace of himself. But the real enemy here is not Rubio. The real enemy is the Republican Party itself to have picked such a loser to even be up there. But besides that, if there were ever trials for acts against America, Wolf Blitzer should be number 1 in the docket for what he did last night. He is the sneakiest of all the Bolsheviks. And I have said over and over again, Trump should stop going to these debates. They're set up only to sell rolls of toilet paper. And when you have vermin like Wolf Blitzer setting them up against each other and then acting like Mr. Nice Guy, hey, gentlemen, can't you calm down? You know why that in the past there were revolutions in nations and that after the revolutions, people got even with people who destroyed the country. But having said that, I took some notes after last night, and I want to invite you to call about what happened not so much last night, but today with this almost... I have to be very careful what I say because I can't say what I actually think Rubio is on, but I don't think he's on tamales. Let me put it to you that way. The sweating, the nonstop talking, the verbal diarrhea. But having said that, what do you think about today's astonishing acts by Rubio and then Trump saying he's going to have a big announcement, and the announcement is Christie endorsing him, which I thought was very odd. To be honest with you, I thought it was a good stunt for a couple of reasons. Christie added a certain solidity to Trump's generalizations. Let me put it to you that way. Christie is a former federal prosecutor, I believe, and he's very smart. And in fact, if you remember a couple of debates ago, I said I really like Christie. I thought he was great. I like Christie. I think that the two men together presented the front of strength that America has needed so badly. I think these two men can really kick you-know-what if they were the choices. If it was a Trump-Christie ticket, it's a winner. I don't know if it's going to be that. But I want to ask you what you think about Christie's endorsement. What do you think about what happened last night? What do you think about what happened today? We're open for business on the Savage Nation. Donald Trump will be with us on Monday, just before Super Tuesday. That's right. Tell all your friends not to miss the Savage Nation as usual. But looking back at last night, here are my notes. Tell me what you think. Again, the phone number is 855-400-7282. The notes. Rubio looks like a sweaty busboy at a dining room. Cruz, although he has all the answers, looks like a smart maitre d' in the same dining room. And Trump came out looking like the club owner. The so-called Republican debate, oh my God, I said, here we go again. Depressing to watch the stooges attack Trump on the tax returns. All of them should have unified and turned the argument back on that piece of garbage narrator or moderator, Wolfie, with the glasses. and that unrated talk show host, whatever his name is, from that unknown network. The fact is that they should have said, I'd rather talk about Hillary Clinton's email scandal, which threatens every man and woman in the United States of America for what Hillary Clinton has done, instead of answering Wolfie's little questions. Then when the tax returns came up, Donald should have said, you know, Wolf, I'd rather talk about the Clinton Crime Foundation and the scam they're running. What about their tax returns, Wolf? How come you don't have the nerve to ask her about those, Wolfie? You see, this is the reason that I'm in radio and I'm not in politics, because I have better answers than they do. That's the fact of the matter. But that's what I would have done last night. Then you would have seen a unified Republican Party instead of a scattered Republican Party. I certainly mostly resented the Telemundo babe, if you want to call her a babe, and I wouldn't. I frankly was disgusted, constantly hearing about Hispanic this, Hispanic that. What do you think about Hispanics? I mean, we're not living in South America. We don't happen to live in South America, Miss Telemundo. We live in North America. That's number one. And number two, Miss Telemundo, I think Trump is going to prevail among Hispanics for the very reasons I have mentioned for the last several weeks. What's interesting to me is that Miss Telemundo, who thinks that she lives in Bolivia rather than in America, Miss Telemundo said, yeah, you got 45% of the Hispanic vote in Nevada, Mr. Trump. But according to a national poll, you're losing. You don't have more than 22%, Mr. Trump. How can you win a general election? Here's the correct answer to that, Miss Telemundo. You want to hear it? Because you're going to hear it. The answer is quite simple. When a Hispanic is asked by another Hispanic, would you vote for Donald Trump in a general election against Hillary Clinton, they're probably ashamed to say they'd vote for Donald Trump in front of an Hispanic inquisitor. That's number one. Whether it's by telephone or in writing, but if it's in Spanish, they're probably afraid to say they vote for Trump. So these polls are invalid. As a trained statistician, as a trained person, meaning a person who's trained to read data, I can tell you that the polls are meaningless. The results are all that matter. And the results in Nevada matter very much because they said that he got a higher percentage of Hispanics than any other Republican candidate ever got for the very reasons I told you he would. And it's important you understand that Miss Telemundo had no business being on that stage. We don't live in Bolivia. We live in America. And I'm sick and tired of hearing about Bolivia and South America. That's number three. A few other notes I made. What do you think of him so far? Let's see. Looks like a sweaty busboy in a dining room. Cruz, although he has all the answers, looks like a smart maitre d' in the same dining room. And Trump last night came out looking like the club owner. As far as the others, I think Kasich is a fine man, a wonderful manager, a great governor. And I know he's not going to win the presidential nomination, but this guy belongs in Donald Trump's cabinet if he would take it. He is first class all the way, and he certainly deserves a seat in the new government. Dr. Carson would be the greatest Surgeon General the country has ever seen. And I certainly hope that if Donald Trump wins, he considers making that appointment. Those are some of the observations about this pathetic debate and why they took the bait and let Wolf Blitzer, one of the sneakiest Bolsheviks in the history of the media, turn them against each other and grill them like that and let Hillary get away with virtual murder is a question that someone else will have to answer. And now let's have some music on the Savage Nation as we collect all the calls that are rolling in at this telethon here, the Savage Nation. The telethon goes on at 855-407-2882. It's the only song that works right now. Let's hear it again.
I can't get no relief. Businessman there to drink my wine. Plowman dig my earth.
Rock and Roll Friday on the Savage Nation.
None will level on the mind.
Let me tell you how this is going to play out, because I've been through this in my own way as a talk show host who's been attacked viciously and mercilessly for 21 years by the very same Bolshevik loser forces that are attacking Trump. His ratings are going to go way up. The more he's attacked, the more people are going to rally around them. I've seen it in my own career, and I can tell you it's going to happen here. No matter what Rubio does, Rubio's going to be put onto the ash heap of history. Nobody will ever remember his name. After this campaign, he will never be remembered. He may not even be able to win again in Florida. I can guarantee you that. Now let's go to the callers on the Savage Nation, 855-407-2882, SBA Radio in Pennsylvania. Ron, thanks for calling. What's your comment? What's your topic?
I think Chris Christie would be a better attorney general than a vice president.
You know, you're 100% right. What was he, a U.S. attorney? what was he? I don't even know what his position was. A prosecutor of some kind? I don't know what his job was before he was governor.
He was a prosecutor.
Well, he's damn good. He's very fast. And he's tough-minded, and he's been around the block. New Jersey's a corrupt state. The Sopranos were filmed about New Jersey. He's dealt with all of them. He can deal with anything, and he's very quick on his feet. That's why Trump pulled him up today. Don't you think that's why Trump got him up there to sort of fill in the emptiness? I mean, let's be honest. Trump speaks in generalities. Trump keeps going back to slogans. He rarely gives answers. I understand all of that. When I presented Trump with 4 specific questions 3 interviews ago, I got specific answers. The problem is they set him up with questions that you need to be a policy wonk to answer. So naturally he can't answer them. But Christie did answer them, I thought, very well. How did you think Christie did today?
You know, I didn't hear what Christie said.
All right, that's fine. We got it for you later on the Savage Nation. That opens up a line at 855-407-282. What do you think about Rubio, the ice cream man? Do you think that he advanced his career in attacking Trump so childishly today? Or do you think that he finished himself off and shot himself in both feet? Because I think it's the latter. I don't think that anyone running for the presidency can say the things that he said in the way he said them, which is a little, there's a way you say things that matters as much as what you say. And he did it with a certain adolescent maliciousness that showed us that he's really not fit, not only for prime time. This guy couldn't run a junior high school properly because the children would laugh him out of the school. There's one particular clip that I think showed the lack of character in this unknown man, Rubio, more than any other. Robert's the one about wetting the pants one. I don't know what number that is. Can you play it for the audience? I think they're going to want to hear it.
He called me Mr. Meltdown. Let me tell you something. Last night in the debate during one of the breaks, 2 of the breaks, he went backstage. He was having a meltdown. First, he had this little makeup thing applying, like, makeup around his mustache because he had one of those sweat mustaches. Then he asked for a full-length mirror. I don't know why, because the podium goes up to here, but he wanted a full-length mirror. Maybe to make sure his pants weren't wet. I don't know. Then I see him pacing back and forth, and then he's huddled in the corner talking to somebody. He's like waving his arms up and down, and the person's trying to calm him down. So, anyway. But I'm a chalker. All right.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth and financial future. Call 1-800-289-2640. Yesterday I did a show on the regrets you've had in your life, and I was going to do a little politics today, but I can't do anything but politics today because it's becoming insane. There's no question Rubio is a desperate child who blindsided Trump, and many of you will say Trump got what he deserved. He's a bully. He's been attacking Marco. Okay, but Marco didn't come into the ring and say, let's fight. He came in and blindsided him with these under-the-belt punches. He punched him under the belt. He was hitting him in the groin one after the other. The question is, who did Rubio damage more, himself or Trump? I don't know the answer to that. I suspect Rubio's finished, personally. Now, let's go to the other side of the coin here. Bernie supporters describe Hillary Clinton in one word. Independent Journal Review was at a rally for Bernie Sanders in Norfolk, Virginia, and there were about 1,500 communists in the audience, and they asked 1,500, a number of the communists, 100 of the communists, to describe Hillary in one word. You want to hear the words most commonly used to describe Hillary by Democrats at the Sanders rally? Here they are. Liar 9 times. Dishonest 5 times. Emails 3 times. Establishment 3 times. Benghazi 2 times. Monica 2 times. Two-faced. Criminal. Flip-flopper. Crazy. Awkward. I can't even say the other words because they're not appropriate for a family show. One of them even said one of her crimes was being white. And another one said she's a reptilian shapeshifter. Now, this is coming from the communists who are supporting Bernie Sanders. My question is, why don't the Republicans use these words when debating instead of falling into the trap set by the most deceptive of all Bolsheviks in the media, one who has survived longer than any of the others, because he is the shiftiest of all the Bolsheviks, and that's Mr. Nice Guy, Wolf Blitzer, who in my mind is a media criminal. Blitzer is a media criminal for what he's done and trying, would gentlemen please get along, blinking his big eyes at everyone like he didn't do it. You talk about a crazy man, a criminal man, an awkward man. Yeah, okay. You talk about the establishment trying to get a populist candidate. It doesn't get any worse than that. WMAL, Dylan, welcome to the Savage Nation. What's your topic or comment?
Dr. Savage, an honor to talk to you. Just real quick, I wanted to point out that you were the only voice I heard pointing out at the beginning of this election that Rubio was a shill. And at first, I went into this with an open mind. I was like, what is Dr. Savage talking about? I don't see it. But the more and more as this process has gone on, I have seen that is absolutely 100% the truth. And anytime this man gets on stage and starts to talk about Reaganism and conservatism, it starts to make my blood boil and really scares me and makes me think that he's really been the biggest threat to this borders culture and language this entire election.
Now, let me tell you something. I don't know Rubio personally at all. I want to be very clear about that. I don't know any of them personally at all. I only met one of them once, Donald Trump. But I will tell you this. I have a home in Florida, which I go to once a year. Back in 2009, I think it was, I reached out to Marco Rubio when he was only a senator. Did you know that? No one knows this. And I invited him on the radio show, my Michael Savage show. He was afraid to come on this show, Mr. Tough Guy. Would not come on the Savage Nation, even when he was a senator, to talk about, I don't know, his positions on this or that. I only wanted him on as a senator. He avoided me. Cruz avoided the show from day one. He's afraid of me. The only one who's not afraid to come and face the Savage Nation is you-know-who. That tells me an awful lot. It's not simply that he's a guest and I enjoy that, because I don't generally reach out to guests, but he's not afraid to face the audience on the show. The others are. And that tells me an awful lot. And I think, Dylan, when I started to call Rubio the ice cream man, I was basing that on the movie Being There with Peter Sellers, where they picked an ordinary gardener who was empty in the head, and because he couldn't answer questions very well, they thought he was a genius. Rubio is a nobody who was selected by powerful forces for one reason only. He has an O at the end of his name. It's about the ethnic vote, my friend. Thanks for calling the show. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
He inherited $200 million. I said it last night. If he had not inherited $200 million right now, he would be selling watches in Times Square. Or be doing one of those infomercials on Saturday morning where he promises to teach you how to flip properties, right?
Oh, God.
So we unmasked him last night. And let me tell you, it's time for you to unmask him as well. I bet you all know, you all have friends. You all have friends that are thinking about voting for Donald Trump. Friends, do not let friends vote for con artists.
You know, what this little man, this little nobody is doing is exactly what Gingrich did to Romney's campaign when Romney ran against the thing in the White House. I forget his name. While Gingrich was doing it, I was infuriated. I said, get that fat slob off the stage. Stop it. He's going to destroy Romney. He's doing all the work that the Obama campaign should be doing but can't be doing. The greedy Gingrich did all the opposition research he could buy to destroy Romney. He worked for the Democrat Party, as is Rubio, in my opinion. Rubio is a shill for the Democrat National Committee because the Democrats would never dare say the things that this shill is saying. There's no question in my mind when I look. Well, let me put it another way. It's a high probability, because I have no way to prove it, that when I see Sheldon Adelson, billionaire casino magnate in Las Vegas, supporting this empty suit, and I see Larry Ellison, billionaire Democrat who wants cheap labor, same thing that Adelson wants, supporting this shill, I know that it's the Democrats who are doing this. It's all about open borders. That's the whole deal right here. And I think that Rubio, whether you like him or not, and I never did, I never liked the man, I always thought he was too light for the job, disgraced himself in ways that are hard to describe unless you understand the whole picture. Trump is a bully, yes. That's fine. That's why we like him. Because we need someone to bully Iran. We need someone to bully North Korea. We need someone to bully the Muslim terrorists. We need someone to bully the Council on American Islamic Relations. We need someone to bully the gangsters in Mexico who are dumping their unwanted masses upon us. That's what we need, is someone who's going to stand up to them. And that's why he's rising in the polls. But we don't need the equivalent of the midgets in Samson and Delilah attacking Samson. That's another metaphor that I was going to use today. It just came back to me. When I was a little boy, I saw a movie, Samson and Delilah, and Samson was the Jewish strongman of Galilee. And in one scene which branded itself in my brain, he was captured by the Philistines. I guess they were the Palestinians. And he was blinded. They took his eyes out. They took out Samson's eyes. They blinded him with hot coals. Even as a kid, I squirmed in a seat. I thought it was the worst thing you could do to a man. And then they released midgets on Samson, who were poking him with hot pokers and throwing nets around him. That's what it looked like to me last night. For all of his flaws, Trump is our Samson. And these guys, these Rubios, are the midgets poking him with the pokers. I mean, it's sickening. So I don't know that he damaged Samson, to be honest with you. Do I think that, what's his name, Trump is so great? No, I never said he was great. I just think he is our best chance to defeat the Bolsheviks. I think he's our best chance to destroy the Islamic State. I think he's our best chance to avoid a war with Russia. I can't say that for any of the other candidates who have any chance whatsoever. Cruz, for example, every other day is speaking against Russia because he's listening to the same party apparatchiks who got us into Iraq and Afghanistan. Make no mistake about it. As smart as you may think Cruz is, I must tell you, he's listening to the same neo-con men advisors who got us into Iraq with the Bushes. And that's why he's repeating the rhetoric of the Cold War, that Russia is our number one enemy. No, Russia is not our number one enemy, Mr. Cruz. Not at all. Russia is our natural ally against radical Islam, Mr. Cruz. Stop making the mistakes that these neo-con out-of-work advisors would have you make. You know, come to your senses, Mr. Cruz. But Cruz didn't embarrass himself last night. He looked like a very able maitre d' in the dining room. And Rubio looked like a sweaty busboy who hasn't changed his jacket for 6 days now. The type of busboy you used to have up in the Catskill Mountains, who you'd have to pull aside and say, look, Marco, go home and change your clothing. You know, you're not looking too good in the dining room. And no matter what he tried to do to the owner, Trump came out looking like the hotel owner last night. So, you know, who was it who said the medium is the message? It was Marshall McLuhan in the 60s, a very, very famous book of its time. Or was it an essay? Who remembers? It was very popular amongst the liberal crowd. Marshall McLuhan wrote, the medium is the message. Well, I would alter that and say the messenger is the message. I don't think I need Marshall McLuhan to speak for me. I'm better than he ever was, which is why I have a bigger audience than Marshall McLuhan ever had. No, it's the messenger who is the message. And Rubio is a terrible messenger. He looks like a messenger boy, to be very honest with you. And you could take that to the bank and quote me. I'm Michael Savage. Now let's go to some of the callers. KSFO, San Francisco. Brennan, what did you think about last night and today?
You know what? I think Marco is shaking in his boots, and he's got to attack the top dog just to get his foot in the door. My fear is that they're going to make Trump look bad, and then by the time the primary is over, you know, the vote's going to be divided in our own party.
Well, look, you got to expect guys who are running behind him to try to attack him to get ahead, but they didn't attack him in any dignified manner with any substance. They did it in the most guttural manner imaginable, saying he wet his pants, he put on makeup, he never punched anyone. You know, I watched that debate last night. I was captivated. Normally I don't watch them, but I was captivated by it. I thought Trump was on the verge of grabbing Marco and strangling him or punching him. I thought he was on the verge of smacking him in the face. What he should have done is reached over and grabbed him in a bear hug and controlled him like he was a nice guy saying, come on, Marco, you don't mean it. You know, one of those big guy things that he should have done to this guy. I expected at any minute. I thought it would have brought the house down. Talk about theatrics. Thank you for the call. Let's go to the next caller. Any women out there? Any of the 12 or 14? Maybe I have 22 now. Savagettes who listen to the show. Love the women who call the show. You don't have to call, but if you'd like to, we'll give you priority on the Savage Nation. 855-407-282. WABC in New York. Tony, go ahead, please. You're on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind from New York City?
Trump is a master. He picks Christie that he could use him as Supreme Court, Attorney General, or Vice President. Kasich he could use as a VP who also delivers Ohio for him, as Christie could give him New Jersey. He's a master. And you were a master better than... Mark Levin and even Rush, who pussyfooted around them. You had the balls to stand up for Trump.
This show, it's just a no-no. We're not like the Republicans on the podium. We avoid it. But I appreciate your sentiments, and thank you for being a loyalist. And I want to repeat again, there's a lot of competition in talk radio. We all think we're better than the other guy. It's the same as what you're watching on the stage. It's the nature of competition. It brings out the best and the worst in people. But at the end of the day, we're all part of the same team. We have the same, more or less the same philosophy. You should remember that. I wish the Republicans would remember that. That's something that's lost on everyone. Wolf Blitzer is the most devious of all of the Bolsheviks in the media, which is why he's been around longer than any, because he has absolutely done his master's bidding better than any of them. And what's even more deceptive about him is he plays the nice old man. The nice old man. Oh, guys, can't you calm down, gentlemen? After he sets them off against each other. The most devious of all the Bolsheviks. But I'm enjoying it, to be very honest with you. I was on the phone today with the #1 scheduler for Donald Trump. And I said, you know what? He's busy today. They wanted to have him on the show today. We were going to have him on at around an hour from now. They said, can you do it Monday? I said, yes, do it Monday. Because this guy's basically today, he's fighting a defensive battle today. There's no question about it. I mean, you want to put it into the parlance of a fight? He was hurt last night. You'd be a fool not to see it. Because even a little guy who catches you off guard, if you're that big, can hurt you. You get hit in the face that many times by a guy who really wants to hurt you, and he's coming at you from behind with the most unexpected blows, you're going to bleed. You're going to hurt. You're going to be bruised. You're going to need time to recover. Now, the surprise today was very interesting of Christie. I didn't think it was that big a deal until I watched it. And then I called a woman who I respect, who's the smartest woman that I know, by the way. She can run America better than any of the candidates and balance the books. And she's not that political, but she's 100% for Trump. And I said to her, how do you feel about the Christie thing? Is it that big a deal? She said, I feel more protected as a woman than I felt in the last 8 years in this country. I see two strong men standing on the stage who will protect us and protect me. That's what I heard. And she's no wimp. She's a very strong woman. She's the toughest person I know, man or woman. Runs a big corporation. Responsible for a lot of money. Knows business, and that's what she said. And I think she speaks for a lot of women. It goes to the Trump appeal. They know what he is, and they know what he isn't. But they know that he's kind of a tough guy who's going to look out for America. Yeah, he doesn't meet the litmus test. Yeah, he's not enough of a purist. I know that. He doesn't carry around the Bible and the Constitution in his hand and wave it. But we're past that point in the campaign, aren't we? We're way past that. And we have to remember what's going on. Don't lose, as they say, the forest for the trees. Wolf Blitzer, the most devious of all of the Bolsheviks in the media, as evidenced by his having lasted longer than anyone in the media, set them up against each other. And there were easy ways to turn it back upon him. Very easy. And I've tried to advise people on this show over the years. As a talk show host, you don't have to take it just because a moderator asks a question. You're not obligated to answer a question. What they should have said was, do a Reagan thing. You smile at old Wolfie the Bolshevik, and you say to Wolfie and that slime ball, that unknown talk show host who's always been trying to be in the big leagues, who himself is a bush leaguer, where'd they get that silver-haired phony from? He's the Rubio of talk radio. He's never gotten anywhere. He has no ratings. He's on a network that can't get out of the starting gate. And every time you turn around, there he is, the silver-haired phony up there. What I would have said to that slimy phony, fake talk show host, is simple. You ask me about my tax returns, I would say, you know, Mr. Unknown talk show host, I'd rather talk about the Clinton Foundation and their tax returns. I'd like to talk about the scam that Bill and Hillary have been running for years about the foreign contributions. I certainly would have turned it on the Telemundo chick. I would have said, honey, we don't live in South America. We live in North America. Your question doesn't play here. We're not in Bolivia. That's number one. And number two, honey, we won 45% of the Hispanic vote in Nevada. So what are you talking about? A national poll you did by yourself? No, my friend. Hispanics won't answer a Hispanic and say, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump. They're afraid to say it because they're afraid to be seen as a sellout. But once they go in that booth on their own, they're going to vote for the strong man. They're not going to vote for the old woman who looks like rotting guava on the jungle floor, by the way. And toxic guava at that. She's like a toxic fruit that's rotting on the jungle floor. She was never even edible. Sorry to use a botanical phrase. I couldn't resist it. It's my botanical background coming out. Now let's talk about Trump speaking in generalities for a minute. One of the criticisms I've heard from some of my, quote, smart friends, and I don't have too many smart friends, the friends that have medical degrees or, let us say, are educated in that regard with higher degrees, they sneer at Trump. They say that he doesn't speak whole sentences. He doesn't finish a sentence. He starts a sentence and he butchers the sentence and he goes on to the next piece of the sentence. I've heard it all. What do you think about that one? Carol on KLIF in Dallas, would you answer that particular accusation against Mr. T?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. You know, I've dealt with a lot of executives in my professional career, and I've been in corporate life for a long time. And when I've dealt with high-end executives, generally they don't have a lot of time, and they do speak in generalities. And it's my job to either fill in the details if they ask about it or if they need it for further support. But you know, it just doesn't surprise me that he speaks in generalities. And also, I assume that he knows a lot of detail, but he doesn't want to take the time to tell you the detail that perhaps you should already know. I mean,
it's interesting. There are policy wonks who can quote chapter and verse on every issue in the world, down to the name of the ambassador from Slovakia. But that's not what we need for a president. That's what you get in a college poli-sci course. I think that what you're saying is that guys like Trump speak in shorthand, and their minds are running so fast that they're running faster than the audiences. I've seen that as well. It's an interesting analysis, which I should get into at another time. I happen to know someone like that who's 10 times smarter than I am. He won't finish a sentence because he assumes that when he started it, you caught the whole thing to begin with, and he's on to the next sentence. I think that's what you're saying, aren't you?
That's exactly right. I mean, they've either gone over it so much in their mind or in their day-to-day dealings that they've, you know, they're already past.
Right. They don't have the patience to fill in the details. Like, they start a sentence, they figure you got it already. He's on to the next idea, the next thought. It's an interesting mindset that the average person either gets or doesn't get. He speaks in shorthand, and I think that upsets a lot of intellectuals. Back in a minute. Thank you for calling the Savage Nation. That opens one line, 855-407-282, 855-4-SAVAGE, 855-4-SAVAGE, 855-4-728. All right, so I'm going back last night to the debate. I was captivated. I couldn't stop watching it. So I sat with the dog. It was still light out here. I live near the water, and I'm watching the sun fall down, and I'm watching it. I turned it a little late. And there's poor Carson. Stands there. You start to feel bad for him. You wish someone would come out and ask him if he'd like a coffee, a tea, a juice. How are you? Someone should talk to him on the side. The guy stands there. No one even insults him. He doesn't say a word. You start to feel bad for the man. Kasich, it's interesting. I said I like Kasich a couple of debates ago because here's the guy. He's like the blue-collar steel worker's son or whatever. And he stands up there like plodding away. He's like an Animal Farm, like the plow horse, pulling the wagon. He's not as fancy as the race horses running around the track. Never throws an insult. He looks over like with the big eyes like a horse would who's pulling a wagon and saying, well, come on, guys, why don't you pull a wagon too? He's a hard worker. Kasich is such an able administrator that I pray to God that he delivers Ohio and he gets delivered through deliverance of some kind of delivery from Donald Trump. Rubio, after this, he's not fit to be a bellman at the Balmoral.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7287. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. Donald, you've hired a significant number of people from other countries to take jobs that Americans could have filled. My mom and dad, my mom was a maid at a hotel, and instead of hiring an American like her, you have brought in over 1,000 people from all over the world to fill those jobs instead. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan. I don't understand, because your ties and the clothes you make is made in Mexico and in China. So you're going to be starting a trade war against your own ties and your own suits.
You don't know anything about it because you're a lousy.
Well, I don't know anything about bankrupting four companies.
No,
You bankrupted four.
What's the screecher there? Like a nympho in the audience. What is the screecher? Where did he get it from? You know, in China, they have professional criers at funerals. They hire women to cry at funerals because most people who die, no one likes them anyway. And no one cries today, especially, but it goes back thousands of years in China, no one cried. They only wanted the money. So they have professional criers. This guy got a professional screecher in the audience. Every minute a screech. I thought I was listening. Well, okay, that's another story. It's a family show. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Phone number is 855-400-72. What an ugly day. What an ugly day to see the desperation of that, the busboy, the sweaty busboy. I worked as a young kid in hotel dining rooms. Being a busboy is not a derogatory statement, nor is it a diminishing position if you do it nice, if you clean your clothing, you come out with a nice shirt. But if you wore your jacket too many days in a row, the maitre d' would say, hey, Rubio and Marco, go back and, change your clothes. You stink, number one. And number two, the diners don't like, that's what he reminded me of, like a sweaty busboy and attacking, left and right. And as I said, although Cruz had all the answers, he looked like the maitre d' in the dining room, stood there. And Trump came out looking like the club owner. And this guy, the busboy, looked like he was attacking the club owner. Welcome to the show, Savage Nation. Carson would be a great Surgeon General. I don't know if he'd even take the job. What a pathetic debate. And it's the Wolf Blitzer, the pathetic, sneaky Bolshevik who's the real problem here. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but there's no question I would have just turned it back on the Bolshevik who asked the questions, and particularly that unknown talk show host who can't get out of the starting gate. Over and over and over again. Where they brought in the Telemundo again, it was simply to embarrass all the Republicans and have them apologize for not being Hispanic, which, of course, you could have predicted, given that it was CNN, which is several notches below Megyn Kelly's network. The fact of the matter is they didn't have to do it. If I were advising Trump, you know what I'd say? You're so far ahead, don't go do any more debates. Do your own events, let them sell their own toilet paper, and let them attack each other. Don't do any more. You don't have to do it. They're only going to ask you setup questions from the Bolshevik crowd, and that's the end of the story. Welcome to the Savage Nation Part 2. Now, in the first hour, we played some sound bites. I don't know if we want to play the screecher again, but Rubio was below the belt. Yes, Trump is tough. Trump is a bully. Yes, true. And Trump attacks, but I never heard anything as low as what Rubio was doing, in that he was hitting him below the belt over and over again. If I were the referee, I would have stopped the fight after the third low blow, and I would have said, you're disqualified, get off the stage. But it wasn't a fight. It was a so-called debate. It's like flying a drone into Trump's groin in the middle of a debate. Rubio was like a midget stabbing him below the belt. It was shocking to watch this. And we got to play a little bit more of the Rubio stuff, only to show you how desperate this man really is. But if it was just about him, I wouldn't be doing it. It's about Sheldon Adelson, isn't it? It's about the Larry Ellison crowd who are backing him. It's about the DNC. It's about the RNC. It's about the power brokers in America who do not want an independent to win. Let's not make any mistakes about it. Trump is the greatest threat to the establishment you have ever seen in your lifetime. And I want you to think about this. The power brokers in this country are so corrupt that they're spending more of their intellectual capital and more of their actual capital trying to rip him down than they are in ripping down ISIS. What does that tell you? It shows you how corrupt this country really is and why desperately we need an outsider. And frankly, the only one on the stage who is an outsider, there's only two, are Trump and Carson. They're not politicians. Now, Carson can't win. He's too soft-spoken. He's too nice. Trump can win, which is why I supported him from the beginning. Secondly, I rank issues to myself that are important. The number one issue to me, and I'm consistent on it, is national security. National security. National security. When I see the imposter in the White House having gotten away with faking an act against ISIS all these years, and he only started fighting against ISIS in any even half-hearted manner after the Russians attacked them with their Air Force, that's only when Obama finally did something. Before that, he was dropping plastic bombs on the enemy, if dropping them at all. He actually supplied them with weapons. We all know that. That's, of course, another subject that should have come up. When the Bolsheviks asked me this, I would have said that. I would have said, you're pretty good at asking me these questions about my tax returns. How come you don't open your big mouth, Wolf, about Hillary when you have her in front of you, about the Clinton Crime Foundation and their tax returns? How about all the money they've taken in from foreign sources? Doesn't that bother you? And while you're at it, Wolf, don't give me the b-b-b with the eyes, Wolf. Don't give me the blinky eyes like you're just caught in the headlights and you don't know what to do because we're so mean. Just shut up for a minute, Wolf. Why don't you answer this question the next time you have Hillary on the stage? Ask her about the emails. Is she embarrassed that people may have been killed because loose lips sink ships, Wolfie? That's the way to do a debate. There are no rules which say you have to answer to them. What you do is you turn it around and ask them a question. I don't understand why the Republicans, as smart and as tough as Trump is, his advisors haven't told him how to turn it around on them. I don't get it. He was pretty good in some cases, but he really didn't do enough in fighting back. That opens up one line at 855-407-282, but I got to play a little bit more of the Rubio stuff because this $200 million thing really bothers me, and I'll tell you why. In reading about Donald Trump's background, now, I've read a significant number of books and articles about him. His father was a successful real estate developer of middle-class housing buildings in Brooklyn and Queens. I know very well because I had a relative who lived in one. Do you know how hard it is to build in New York City? Do you know what elements you have to pull together to pour concrete in Manhattan or in Brooklyn or Queens? Do I have to spell it out for you? Do you know what kind of union people you have to deal with? Do you know what it's like dealing with the electricians union, the Brotherhood of Carpenters, the Brotherhood of Plumbers? It's probably the toughest negotiating trick in the world. So he grew up in his father's, around the father, watching it. He had a brother who had the same opportunities he had. I understand he didn't achieve what Donald did. And that's an important thing to remember. Because many of you think that if you had a father who was a success, you would be a success. There's no guarantee. There are many successful fathers who produce successful sons, and there are just as many who produce unsuccessful sons. So it's not an automatic, Mr. Rubio, that if your father has money and he gives you $1 million to start a business, which you pay back, that you're going to make a success of yourself. The opposite could be true. The kid could wind up blowing it in a business deal, snorting it up his nose, chasing prostitutes. The fact of the matter is there's another element that's not come up in any of these debates that I think is very important. Do you know that Donald Trump does not drink alcohol? Do you know that? Raise your hand if you knew that. Most people didn't know that. I didn't know it. I mean, I don't ask anyone whether they drink or not. I assume everyone has a drink now and again. I have nothing against it. I have a drink now and again. But the fact is, I remember when I met him in Florida, my son said to me, do you know he doesn't drink? He was impressed with that. I said, no, I didn't know that. He said, no, he said, doesn't drink. So I said, Donald, is it true you don't drink? He said, no, I don't drink. You know what kind of energy that frees up in a person to not drink? Frees up a lot of energy. Because alcohol, as relaxing as it can be, it takes an awful lot of time coming back from even 1 or 2 drinks at night the next morning. I don't care who you are. So anyway, the point I'm making many points at once. I don't want to start speaking in shorthand, or soon you'll accuse me of butchering the English language, which is the worst thing that could ever happen to a talk show. But believe me, I could speak in shorthand too. I can do it very, very much in the same thing of starting a sentence and not finishing it, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But we'll go into that at another time. If you have any comments on what happened last night or happened today, you can give me a ring at 855-407-282. But I want to remind you again, I don't know if you can find it on YouTube or any of the archives. Pardon me. Yesterday's show was one of the greatest breakthroughs I've ever done in 21 years, 22 years in talk radio. It'll be 22 years this March 24th in radio. I did a show called Regrets. I asked the audience to say, what in your life have you done that you regret? Do you regret that you got married? Do you regret that you didn't get married? Do you regret the man you married or the woman you married? It was astounding what happened on this show yesterday. Everyone is emailing me who knows my email and saying the man from Brooklyn was astounding, who told us he didn't like his wife and 2 daughters. Then you remember the man who cried in hour number 2? He said, Michael, he started out in a very dignified voice. He said, I had 3 women in my life. I'm 67 years old. 3 women I could have married. And for one reason or another, I didn't marry them. And he said, my life has been empty as a result. I should have married any one of them. I feel like I blew my life. And he started to cry in there. It was very touching. And a lot has to be said about the regret show yesterday, because it opened up my own thinking about something I want to be doing in the future, maybe long after the election or along the way, with regard to my abilities, my innate abilities to hear people out, to listen to them. And if you didn't catch yesterday's show, I advise you go try to find it somewhere I don't know where they put them. I really don't. I'm not into the business of selling you a wig and a shoe, and here you could turn here and get a mustache wax and a thing, and you could buy this. Okay, don't do it. I don't know where you get it. It's all for free. We don't sell it, but it's up there on the internet somewhere. And if you want to hear that one, you really got to hear those calls. All right, let's go to the callers right now on the Savage Nation. Rick on WJR in Detroit. Welcome to the Savage Nation. What do you think?
Michael, for the second time in my life, you have absolutely blown my mind. When you said that Donald Trump speaks in shorthand, I had a eureka moment. I thought, that's it. I mean, when he's speaking up there, and like a couple weeks ago, he said, we've got 19 trillion, and then he didn't finish his sentence. I thought, well, I know what he's talking about, but I bet there's a bunch of people who don't know what he's talking about. But when people speak in shorthand, it exemplifies the fact that they are highly intelligent. Their mind is zooming way ahead.
That's right. I know someone like that, and he starts a sentence, and he gets very frustrated if I don't understand what he's thinking right away. And he gets very angry at me. I have to slow him down and say, wait a minute, slow down. I'm not too stupid myself. Can you please finish the sentence? But he thinks I got it. He thinks that the telegram went through my brain already and he's on to the next sentence. I have a special announcement for you right now. First of all, thank you for calling on that eureka moment about Trump. We have a big surprise for you on the Savage Nation. You know what that is? I'll tell you what it is. In exactly 1 hour from now, we have Donald Trump himself right here on the Savage Nation. Now, I'm mentioning that for a couple of reasons. You'll say, well, I'm listening. Good, I'll keep listening. Some of the stations that I'm on do not carry the third hour. New York drops the show in the third hour. Washington, D.C. moves on to all news. I would suggest that if the program directors are listening, I don't have the time to email, you may want to consider cutting into the show at that time to hear news being made right here on the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage.
Your Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust for tangible assets, gold and silver. Call 800-BUICO.
What does Donald Trump do when things go wrong? He takes to Twitter. I have him right here. Let's read some. You'll have fun. All right, number one, here's the first one. Lightweight Marco Rubio was working hard last night. This is true. The problem is, he is a chalker. And once a chalker, always a choker. I guess that's what he meant to say. He spelled choker, C-H-O-K-E-R, chalker.
No, you are a choker. You choked on your own words. That's what you are, Marco. I really would like to see the result of that in terms of ratings and what. I personally think that Rubio destroyed himself last night, showing what a mean-spirited little man he really is in plain English. And we can move on if you'd like. 855-407-282 is the phone number. Let's go to the callers. WGDJ Radio in New York. Welcome to the Savage Nation. What's on your mind, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm a lieutenant colonel, still in my 28th year of military service, and I've had the advantage of studying adversaries over my career. One of the things that I've studied is that when you take a look at a foreign power or an enemy or a potential enemy, you have to understand their mindset. China, Russia, Iran, they look at the world through the prism of Iran first, China first, Russia first. America used to do that. We stopped doing it after World War II. We lost our national will in Korea when we failed to stop them and gave back all of what in turn became North Korea. As a result, we no longer have a quote-unquote John Wayne running for president. However, this time we do. That's what Trump harnesses and represents. An America-first approach, an unapologetic American patriot running for office. Unlike you, Dr. Savage, I look at him and I say, no, he doesn't have everything right. He doesn't look at everything like a Cruz would on the Constitution. He doesn't look at everything like other people would. But you know what he's not? He's not a career politician like sellout McCain or liberal progressive McConnell or any of these other swine that have permeated government for decades.
And as a career military, I'll ask a simple question. It's an obvious question which has the answer built into it. Which of those men on the stage do you think would inspire the greatest leadership and have the troops rally behind them? I think it's clearly Donald Trump.
Oh, no, it absolutely is Donald Trump. I think behind him would be Cruz, but I honestly think Donald Trump is better. Now, I just recently voted for Cruz. I'll tell you, I voted. What's turned me from that to being supportive of Trump is just what I've explained to you. He's appropriately, finally, putting America first. It is what all Americans have actually been asking for and dying for, but we've been lied to by politicians left and right all along the way. And
now, you said something interesting. You said America first. That scares the pants off the Bolsheviks, the internationalists. It's the thing that scares them the most, is that we would get a nationalist style leader. I've been calling for a nationalist party for 3 books now. Trump is the closest thing that we have to such a leader. And look at the hatred he's receiving both from within the Rhino Party and from without, including foreign dictators like Vicente Fox. Think about that, what a threat he is to those who hate America.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Guys, we have a con artist as the front runner in the Republican Party. A guy who has made a career out of telling people lies so that they come in and buy his product
I don't want to
or
hear
whatever he does.
The weasel's finished. The ice cream man goeth. Okay, it's enough already. I had enough of the weasel. The fact of the matter is Rubio's a nobody. He's never done anything in his life. I want to repeat again. Look at that stage of candidates, both sides of the aisle. What has Hillary ever created that anyone bought? Nothing. What service has she ever provided that anyone purchased? Nothing. Sanders is unmentionable. We know he's just a communist big mouth. Now look at the Republican stage. Which of them has created a product or a service that anyone has bought? Donald Trump has produced buildings all over the world with his name on it. I don't see any buildings that say Rubio on them. Now you look at Ben Carson. He's a man who's produced something. He provides a great service. He's a pediatric neurosurgeon. Both great men. There's a big difference between doers and talkers. That's number one. And I said to you about Trump, despite all of his flaws, despite all of his whatever you want to say about him, I mean, there's 100 words you could apply to it. Bully, a narcissist, whatever, doesn't matter. If you try to build a building in New York City, Brooklyn, Queens, especially Manhattan, you cannot get it done unless you know your way around the unions, the not only the unions, but the process of permits is a labyrinth. It's Byzantine. So he didn't just build an apartment house. He built skyscrapers, and many of them. Why am I telling you this? Because working that and working governmental agencies and working foreign governments is the same thing. The same skills, rather. The same skill set is what's required. And incidentally, the same skill set that permits a man to negotiate, talk, is not the same as a debate skill. For example, I'm not that good at debating. I'm really good as a talk show host. I'm very happy with my abilities as a talk show host. I was never one of these kids who was in a debate society, who looked to get the best of the other guy. That's a whole different world. Some of those kids who get the best of the other guy are not very smart. They're just very mean and very quick. There's a big difference. Now let's go to some of the callers. Tom on WABC in New York City. What's your message, Tom? Thanks for calling.
How you doing? This is Tom. Yes. Donald Trump's success is completely downplayed. I know what it takes to build a skyscraper or a superstructure in Manhattan. That's what I do for a living. I'm a mason. I pour concrete. The amount of cooperation that's needed to build one building in itself, let alone as many as he did, is incredible. Trump will be a great president because he knows how to delegate and put the right people in the right spot.
Now, I want to ask, when you say you're a mason and you pour concrete, are you in the concrete business, or are you a guy who puts the walls up or the concrete foundations?
I own a concrete company in Manhattan. So
you're a good man. You're a good man to know. You're a good man to know. Can I buy you a coffee one day? I'm just joking.
Sounds good.
Listen, I happen to know something about concrete just from an outside thing. It's not easy to even get concrete in Manhattan. Isn't that correct?
It's not easy because you're all the concrete plants are either up in Astoria, Long Island City, or down in Brooklyn. And you only have, now this concept alone, you only have 90 minutes to place the concrete in the forms completely. So in other words, if you're pouring downtown and you order your concrete from Brooklyn, it doesn't matter if the traffic, it's 90 minutes and you have inspectors there, and I can't tell you how many trucks have come to the job and we don't have time to start pouring, and that truck is sent back. So that budget process, budgeting alone and predicting how many trucks, if you need 10 trucks, you know 2 out of those 10 at the minimum are going to be set back due to traffic.
It's interesting what you just said. Here it is. The whole campaign can be seen through the concrete that Trump has used to pour for his buildings in Manhattan. I've been trying to say that. People don't even understand the ramifications, even 1/10 of what you're saying. There are so many elements that could interfere with that pour. Not only the ability to get the concrete, but to get the concrete from the concrete factory out to the job. I didn't even know it was in that short a time frame. And what a union could do to you there, they could cripple you. If you don't get along with the union, they could stop the truck. They could have the guys walk off the job, right? And that's the end of that. You lose your fortune. So for Rubio to shoot his mouth off and say you never did anything is nonsense. Utter nonsense. It's crazy. Rubio is working for the Democrat National Committee. Rubio may as well be working for Hillary Clinton. I'm 100% more for Trump today than I was yesterday because of the midgets who were attacking him, the Lilliputians. So, Tony, the buildings that he built, are you proud of those buildings? Are they good buildings?
Those buildings are phenomenal. There's one in particular up on 55th or 54th. It has an angle, like a neo angle. The two sides are neo angles in glass. I think that's where his office is. Well, he has many offices. But that's phenomenal. But just the fact of building in New York, I take great pride in it. And
no, it's something to behold. As a kid who grew up in New York, I used to love to stand over construction sites. I don't know if they still do it, but in the old days, they would cut holes in the side of the plywood and let you look at the excavation. I think that still goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I just want to make...
No, not much anymore because the lawyers interfered. The lawyer said, oh, don't let him stand underneath the wood. It's liable to fall on their head and they'll sue you. Tom, I'm sending you a copy of Government Zero. I certainly appreciate your listenership to the Savage Nation. Let's all hope that the right thing happens here and we wind up with a real doer rather than a talker in the White House. 855-400-7282. Remember, tell your friends, tweet your friends, whatever social network you use. I just got reconfirmation that the man himself, Mr. Trump, will be with us at 15 minutes after the next hour, right here on your local affiliate. And we're going to ask him some questions that you want answered. And if you want them answered, I'll tell you what, go to my Facebook page right now and send me the questions you would like me to ask Donald Trump. I think that's the easiest thing to do. WDRC, WMAL, KSFO, WABC, WFTL. These are some of the call letters, the magical call letters of the nation. There are many others. And you're invited to call 855-400-7282. MAL Bob, you're on the Rubio side. Go ahead, please make your point.
I'm a big Trump supporter, but I have to say that Rubio knocked him through the canvas 2 or 3 times last night. And my opinion is why he was able to do this, he took the offensive against Trump. Specifically, he hit him with the Polish workers that Trump had brought into the country. He hit him with Trump University, and he hit him with the fortune that his father left him. Now, what he should have done, Michael, Trump should have been prepared for that, and instead of having to play defense, he should have hit Mark Rubio with all the skeletons in his closet first.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. I said in the last hour, don't assume that Trump wasn't hurt by it. He was. It was a bloody fight. Rubio came up from behind and hit him with the kidneys, then kicked him in the groin, and then went for his neck. I mean, he was pretty vicious. He came at him tooth and claw. But if Trump, wants to be the front runner, he should have been ready for it, is what you're saying. I agree with you. But he took a beating. He's bruised. He probably bled a little. And I think his quick press conference today with Christie was an attempt to cover that up. What do you think about Christie and him? Did you think that helped at all or not?
I think it helped, but here's what I think. I think that Rubio is a smart operator. He's very quick on his feet, and he has all the power in the treasury of the Republican Party, and all the lobbyists still want to keep these borders open behind him. They did a hell of a lot of research, and they had him a script that was really tough.
Well, I don't know why the Trump people don't do opposition research on Rubio. I don't think he's as clean as he looks. I think that sweaty little guy has some skeletons in his closet. I keep hearing about the father, the hardworking bartender. I'm sure that's all true. But there may be things that we haven't heard about that we want to hear about. And I'm sure that once you start opening up that can of worms, some scorpions are going to climb out who've been eating those worms. I thank you for the call. That opens up one line on the Savage Nation. KSFO, Tony, welcome to the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael, Trump is the first guy that really brought up the immigration. I live here in California where you do, and Mexico has destroyed California. I haven't heard one politician go after immigration the way that Trump did. And when I hear Cruz say, I was fighting it and Donald Trump was nowhere. No, it was all the millions of people that listen to your radio show that called in 2012 and faxed and flooded the Congress hall that made basically shut down the immigration. It wasn't one guy, Cruz, that was there. And I'll tell you another thing. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, we'd have Jeb Bush right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's 100% true, and I'm glad you brought it up. I have to take some credit for the immigration discussion because for 22 years now I've been preaching borders, language, and culture. And many listeners to this show on the local affiliate KSFO remember a rally we had in front of the federal building called Stop Prop 209. It was about affirmative action, where I showed up inside an armored car. I have been leading this fight for many, many years. I don't take credit for it because I'm not the only one. But the fact of the matter is, I've been preaching the same message here in the trenches for 22 years. I'm glad someone came along, namely Donald Trump, who's picked up that message. And he's not saying, Hispanics are bad. He didn't say that. He said we've got to close the border because we're bleeding right now. Mexico is dumping all of their unwanted on us, and the social service cost is overwhelming. And I think we have to focus on that for a minute or two. When I go past the construction site and I see Hispanic men, mainly Mexicans, working so hard, I admire them. I love workers. I come from a worker background, and I'm a worker. And I see the artisans and the craftsmen putting a house together from the foundation right to the I see just the other day, there's 5 houses near me that are being finished. So they're putting in the gardening now. It's like amazing to watch even a single family home being put together with a team of men. And they're all Hispanic workers. All of them. And I love watching them from the morning when I bicycle by to the end of the day. I sometimes bicycle by before the show and see them eating a sandwich. I understand hard work, but there's a hidden cost to it. And the hidden cost is the woman at home, the children at home. They're not free. There's a cost to that. The cost is paid by the taxpayer. And I would say that there's another element of this entire immigration discussion that's not even been mentioned. I'm surprised Donald hasn't mentioned it. I should really be part of his kitchen cabinet. He kept saying he was doubling down, I'm going to build the wall. Then when Vicente Fox said the F word yesterday, he said the wall just got 10 feet higher. Remember that one? That's only one dimension of the entire immigration problem and how to solve it. One dimension of the solution, rather. There is another dimension. If you are president and you control the budget, you can almost immediately if your party has the power over the budget, cut off the benefits that not only the immigrants, but the welfare class in this country is enjoying. And you can specifically target non-citizens who are capitalizing on the generosity of the American taxpayer. Because if you were to cut off all the benefits that they're not entitled to, whatever they may be, food stamps, housing, medicine, free legal services, education, these benefits are not theirs to have if you're an illegal alien. If they were to dry it up, many of these people would deport themselves. Do you know that? Because there would be nothing here for them. They wouldn't be able to live as well on their husband's hard work if the husband is working, in plain English. If the guy is making $20 an hour, and I don't know what they pay him. I really don't. Is it 20 an hour, 25 an hour? I don't know what a laborer gets. It's not great money, but it's enough money to live on if you're alone and you're living with 5 other guys in a house that you rent. But it's not enough to keep a wife and 3 children in nice clothing and drive a car. So the money's coming from somewhere. Secondly, there's another element. What do you think the number of billions is that is sent back to Mexico every year by workers here in the country? The last I checked, it was something like $25 billion is sent home to Mexico. Do you know why? Because they're not paying taxes. You know why? Because they're not paying for school. You know why? Because they're not paying for food stamps. You know why? Because they're not paying for 19 different things that they're getting for free. All of that money that's being sent back to Mexico, and for that matter, China and Russia and all of the other countries that we have immigrants from, all that money is because they're not paying their fair share of taxes. Think about that one. So again, I would add another dimension to the entire immigration issue, and it's kind of a painless, silent one. You target the benefits that illegals are getting that they're not entitled to benefit from. You dry them up. You cut them off, and many of them will have to go home on their own. You're not going to believe what will happen. People are not going to keep coming here if there's no longer the milk and honey that they're getting right now. The day the milk and honey dries up, the day the milk and honey is locked up, the day the milk and honey is gone, they're not going to be pouring over that border. I got to take a quick break. Remember this. It's 13 minutes to the hour right now. At 15 minutes after the next hour, Donald Trump Live for your questions right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUICO. Look, the big topic today is Donald Trump. I'd be a fool to tell you otherwise. All anyone's talking about. It's the biggest story of the day. You know what's going on. He's being attacked viciously by the Democrats and the Republicans through their front groups and through their stooges and shills like Rubio. He's still a populist leader. He's going to be with us at 15 after the hour. Look what people just wrote to me on this show. I'm on Facebook.com, Michael Savage, my website, my Facebook page. Are you ready for this? Dr. Savage, Steve Atkinson says, tell Mr. Trump he can apply a 4% wire transfer fee on all outgoing illegals sending monies home. $120 billion worldwide, $24 billion to Mexico alone. That would build the wall. And if he does it on Mexico only, they would pay for the wall. That's an amazing statement, Steve in Kansas. I have the best listeners in the whole world. There's no question about it. This is a simple answer. He said, we will build a wall and they'll pay for it. Well, there we go. We don't even have to ask Mexico to pay for it. The money that they're sending alone back home to Mexico, which is $24 billion because they're not paying taxes here, if you put a 4% wire transfer fee on outgoing money, Western Union or otherwise, and it goes to the federal government, that's for the wall right there. Another one says, Trump's subcontractor, not Trump himself, had hired the illegal immigrants for the project. And they're citing the conservativetribune.com about the Polish workers. And it says, of course, Rubio lied. Let's see. How would he deal with the H-1B program with them taking all our professional, high-paying IT jobs? It's a crime how Americans are being passed over and laid off. 1,000%. Disney alone, they should be put in prison for what they're doing. It's like making you dig your own grave with a shovel and then saying jump in it. And then letting the grave be filled up by a foreigner who throws the soil over your face. That's Disney for you. Enjoy the mouse.
Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
The problem with Marco, he's a joke artist. He chokes. And he did it in front of Chris Christie. I've never seen anything like that. I was standing right next to him. I look over, I say, "Are you okay?" I mean, it looked like he just came out of a swimming pool. He was soaking wet. And he kept repeating himself.
All right, so we had the busboy try to attack the hotel owner last night. The would-be Don Rickles. His act failed. He was fired by the American people, and that is little old Rubio. But we're way past the Rubio debacle. It was a pretty bad scene. I mean, the fact is he hurt Trump. You know, any fight, I don't care if a fighter wins, he walks away bruised. Trump was bruised. Probably bleeding somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So Rubio came at him tooth and claw. Many of you say, good, he deserves it. I get it. But it didn't do Rubio any favors. He looked like a guy who was off his meds. Now, in about 10 minutes, exactly 10 minutes, Mr. Trump himself will be on the Savage Nation Live. I know many of you want to ask him questions. I don't think we're going to get a chance, but I've been on my Facebook page. I got some of the best questions in the world. I'm going to ask him as many as I can. We're going to change a little bit of the timing in this hour in order to accommodate Mr. Trump, who is fitting us in the tightest imaginable schedule. And he'll be here at 15 after. We're going to go off air. What time, Robert? 11 after? Did you say? I don't even know when. At 11 after, which is 5 minutes from now, we're going to take our first break, come back with plenty of time to have Mr. Trump as a guest on the Savage Nation on this, I think, one of the most important days on the campaign trail to date. It's a huge day. It's so huge that he had to go to a huge ex-candidate, Chris Christie, and bring him in, which is interesting in itself for many different reasons. I mean, he attacked Christie during the debate. Christie attacked him. Now they're best of friends. Frankly, people looked at them and they said, what a great team that would be. Two tough men, very skilled at what they do to run America. I think that the enemies of America, from Guadalajara to Vietnam, are shaking because they know that the game is over. And they're going to do everything they can. They'll buy off every Republican that they can buy off to try and block him. Now, my biggest fear is the brokered convention. Many of you don't know what a brokered convention is. A brokered convention is a broken convention. There is no convention. It's a group of corrupt power brokers, big fat cats in the Republican establishment, the type who have opened the borders, peeled us open like a can of peas, destroyed our borders, language, and culture. These are the most evil men in America. If you think that the Bolsheviks on the Democrat side are bad, you're right. These guys are worse because they pretend to be Republicans, which they probably are, which tells you everything you need to know about a brokered convention. They're going to go behind the scenes, 200 of them, 200 of the worst people in America, and they're going to try and steal the election from Donald Trump no matter what the people say. So when Donald joins us in the Savage Nation, I'm frankly going to ask him that question immediately. It's going to be, Donald, I know your time is short, but what if the fat cats pull a brokered convention? That's the first thing I'm going to ask him. And I don't know if there's a better question, than that one, truthfully. 855-400-7282 is the phone number. Got so many great callers here. Robert on KSFO, go ahead, fire away. We have about a minute left.
Not a problem. I just wanted to make a point. None of the media is talking about other Hispanics' perspectives. They just make it look like it's a Mexico versus Trump thing. In Florida, Trump is up by a lot. Cubans do not trust other Cubans. That's just something between me and you, Michael.
That's true. That's true with most ethnic groups, by the way. That's why I don't like Bernie Sanders.
You know exactly what it is, and they're not voting. They're not supporting Rubio.
Well, no, it's an interesting. You touched a raw nerve there because Cubans can look through other Cubans in ways that non-Cubans can't. It's the same with every ethnic group. People within their own ethnic group can see the phonies a mile away. It doesn't matter what the ethnic group is. Isn't that true?
It's very true, and I just want you to tell Trump, when you get a chance, if you get a chance, that the media should be asking other Hispanics in the country, like Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, and Venezuelans, their opinion about immigration, because they're asking Mexicans. Mexicans are going to be biased, but Cubans, believe me, they want strong immigration. Okay?
Thank you, my friend. I happen to know it, and I know that most Hispanic men are macho. They don't want to take orders from Hillary Clinton, of all people. They're going to vote for a strong man. I'll be right back with Donald Trump right here. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUI-COI. This is the Savage Nation. We are expecting perhaps the future president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, to join us any minute on the Savage Nation. We will keep that line open for them. They're calling in from Oklahoma, I believe. I think they're on the road in Oklahoma. It's been what a day for him. But I'll tell you the truth, it's been a nail-biter for me because what I see going on is unprecedented. To see a party rip itself apart like this in front of the world and to join the enemy. What they're doing to Trump, Hillary wouldn't dare to do. What they're doing to Trump, even the communist, whatever his name is, I don't even remember his name. I can't remember it, Bernie, whatever, wouldn't do. But joining us right now is the future president of the United States of America. Play the music. Mr. Trump, welcome to the Savage Nation. Welcome to the program, Mr. Trump.
Hi, Michael.
What you've been through. I mean, we've been talking about this for 2 hours. You know what I said at the beginning, Donald? I watched it last night. I said Rubio looked like a sweaty busboy in a dining room. Cruz, although he had all the answers, looked like a smart maitre d'. And Donald Trump came out looking like the hotel owner. Welcome to the program.
Well, I appreciate that. We got great reviews. We won all the polls on the debate, but I was in the middle of two people that they're in trouble. This Rubio, I never saw a guy sweat like this. He's pouring sweat.
I don't know. Look, you can't say it, but I can. He must be off his meds. He looked like a child who needed Ritalin. Well, Donald, your time is short. What if the GOP brokers a brokered convention? What's going to happen then?
I don't see it. I think we're going to win it. I mean, look, the fighters, they go into unfriendly territory, and they say the only way we're going to definitely come out ahead is the knockout. And you go for the knockout. I think that's what, I think really what happens here. We're going to have, I believe, a pretty good Tuesday. And if it's as good as we think, we're on our way, Mike. I mean, we won, as you know, we won South Carolina. We won everything we've had just about, and it's been amazing. New Hampshire was amazing. Nevada was amazing. And South Carolina.
Donald, I watched the Telemundo girl last night. It was really sad to see her try to set you up. I mean, you're in a national poll, you don't show high, and a Hispanic just said you won 44% of them in Nevada. She says, yeah, but that's not the nation. That's nonsense for one reason, Donald. In my opinion, if an Hispanic goes to another Hispanic and says, who are you going to vote for, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, they're never going to say Donald Trump to another Hispanic, but they're going to do it behind the scenes, and I think she's all wrong about that. I have one other thing. You talked about building the wall, and after Vicente Fox used that foul language, you said the wall just got 10 feet bigger. I love it. And say, well, how are you going to pay for it? You want to hear what we came up with on the Savage Nation, Donald? Mexicans are sending home over $25 billion a year, untaxed money back home. If you put a 4% transfer fee, a wire transfer fee on all monies going to Mexico, think about the money we could raise that way to pay for the wall. You wouldn't even have to tax anyone.
That would take care of it. Look, the money they make, the deficits we have, Michael, $58 billion a year. People don't realize that. We have a huge deficit with Mexico. So that's one thing. I mean, sadly, you want to see numbers. Take a look at the drugs that are pouring over that border. The drugs are just a disgrace. I won New Hampshire, and I will tell you the biggest problem they have up there is the heroin problem, all coming out from Mexico. And, we got to build a wall. There's no doubt about it. And now all of a sudden I see this guy Rubio say, oh, well, maybe we should build a wall. Maybe we should build a wall. And actually Ted Cruz said that also. So, they're coming along, but they'll never be able to get it built.
Donald, I want to ask a couple other questions about this campaign. Have you ever seen anything like this in all your years in America? Have you seen members of of a single party attack a fellow candidate as viciously as Rubio did last night and today? He's doing things that even Hillary wouldn't dare do because it would besmirch her to go there with wet your pants, stuff like that. You're not a tough guy. I watched it last night, Donald. I thought you were going to strangle him or give him a whap in the face. I thought you were going to crack him in the mouth.
Well, he's not a I don't think he's a very smart guy. He's not a smart guy, and he's a very nasty guy. I watched last night, and I'll tell you, backstage, he was putting makeup on like with a trowel.
I saw that. He says you were putting makeup on. You say he was putting makeup on.
Using a trowel. But and I watched him melt down with Chris Christie. Chris Christie, as you know, he just endorsed me, which is a great endorsement. But I watched him melt down. I'd never saw anything like it. He melted down with Chris Christie like I've never seen. I've never seen anything like it. I was standing right next to him. And he's not the right guy for president. Do you remember the famous thing where he grabbed the water during his presidential retort? And
yes.
And
what was the water every minute? Like a baby with a baby bottle, sucking on water every 2 minutes. Donald, you're not going to answer it, but isn't this a signal that you're going to pick Christie possibly as a VP?
Well, I'll tell you, we made no deals. He just called me and he said, I'd really like to endorse you. You have an amazing campaign. I have a lot of people calling me wanting, to endorse. We're going to be naming a lot of people. And, I've never been big on endorsements, Michael. I've never thought they really meant that much, but this was one that I loved. And I guess
he's very good I liked Christie 2 debates ago. I thought he showed off beautifully. He's a very skilled debater. As a former U.S. attorney, he'd be a fabulous attorney general compared to what we have now. Could you imagine that? So I hope that when you do win the presidency, he does rise to the top, because the American people are desperate for 2 strong men in high places in America. Donald, I read that on March 11th, there is a Republican dinner or something at your Mar-a-Lago. What's that about?
Well, they have a big dinner. I guess it's for Florida or Palm Beach County, but they have something on I think it is the 11th, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to be there. I'm supposed to be in Louisiana that night.
Oh, well, I was going to go. I was going to go there to break bread with you, but if you're not there, I'm not going. That's all.
Oh, let me put it this way: if I'm there, I'm going to be telling you, okay? Because I want you to be there. But Mar-a-Lago has been such a great place, and they love to have that dinner. We have that dinner once a year, and it's been a great success.
Donald, before you go, I've been talking about the buildings with your name on them in Manhattan, just focused on Manhattan. Rubio, so far as I know, to use him, or Cruz, I don't see any buildings with the name Cruz or Rubio on them. And this is an important factor. We had a man call because I was talking about concrete in the last hour. I said, does anyone listening to this show know how hard it is to build in Manhattan? The unions, the city itself, the permit process. No one knows how hard it is. So a guy calls from New York in the last hour, Donald, and he says he poured concrete on some of your buildings. He explained how hard it is to time all of this properly. They only have 90 minutes to get the trucks from the cement factory out to the job, and what it takes in organization and negotiation. And that's what I've been trying to tell the audience, Donald. People don't understand what it is to be a builder anywhere, let alone in Manhattan.
When you build in Manhattan, if you can build in Manhattan, you can do just about anything. But it's been, look, I've had a great career with that stuff, and now I'm looking at this. Our theme is Make America Great Again, Michael. You have been so fantastic, but it's Make America Great. I've been given a lot of credit for that debate last night, but I want to tell you, it was crazy. I'm sitting there in the middle of these 2 guys, and the one, in all fairness, Cruz was fine. But the other one is, he's off his rocker. I think he's...
No, Cruz had dignity. Cruz showed dignity. The other one is nuts. Remember, Donald, 22 years in radio, this March 24th, I've been preaching borders, language, and culture. You are the first candidate to come along to talk about borders, but if you seal the borders, we get the other 2 almost automatically. You are the guy we've been waiting for, Donald, which is why I've supported you from the day you announced. People say, well, what's in it for you? Donald, have I asked you for anything ever? Have I called you in behind the scenes and said, can you give me... I never asked for anything, did I?
Or even a hamburger, okay? Nothing. Zero.
Not even a hamburger. I would pay for it if you offered it to me, because that's the way it is. It's because you reflect everything that I would like to see in a candidate for America. It's that simple, and we wish you the greatest luck. We're there for you right to the end. We'll support you to the end. I'm the most loyal guy on the earth. I never, ever forget a friend, Donald. You got to know that.
You're fantastic, Michael. I appreciate it. I will talk to you very soon, but I really do appreciate it. You're a special guy. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Yes, I was not brought to the school on a little bus, but thank you very much. I'll be right back, right here on the Savage Nation. No break now? We can go right through it? I didn't even know. I have no idea. This is one of the most exciting days, in radio. I feel like I'm watching the Hindenburg blimp landing in New Jersey, and the spark is about to go off, and the thing, the humanity, it's liable to catch fire any minute. That's how I feel. I mean, this is an amazing day. I could have kept them on. I didn't know. I asked Donald to leave because my normal timing was like, we got to take a break before the end, but okay, we can keep talking amongst ourselves. So here are some of the other Facebook ideas that people have sent for me to say to Mr. Trump, and maybe I'll send them to his people. Here we go. Heidi Weisenbacher Kruger writes, she says, Marco Rubio, the boy blunder, is a political opportunist. He jumped on the Tea Party bandwagon when it advanced his political career, and now it seems as if he's happy to embrace establishment politics. Did you hear him today, Michael? This morning, I got to read more. He was playing the class warfare card. It was unbelievable. It was like something from a Hillary Clinton speech. Then later, he implied immigrants can't spell while trying to stick it to Mr. Trump. Okay, that's interesting. Ask him to clear up the Rubio healthcare attack. Here's one from Bill Turner. Are you ready for this? Ask classmates to call in who remember Donald Trump from military school. Did he go to the New York Military Academy? I had a friend who went there. His father, my friend went there because he was a troublemaker. His father sent him to military school. I got to tell you the military school story. He says, it was a grind for me, but a character builder. I bet he'd get a solid recommendation from former cadets and instructors. That's funny. He said, I like the concrete man who gave the accurate construction picture. Wow, you said earlier on your current broadcast that he wouldn't be there today. Great news, I'll be listening. Is he a member of any secret societies? Okay, I don't think so. I don't think the secret societies would have Donald Trump as a member. I think that's absolutely true. I don't think that they would have him as a member. It's the Groucho Marx thing. I like this thing about the military academy. My friend, whose father sent him to the New York Military Academy, sent him because my friend was a fighter and a troublemaker. His father was also a fighter, a club owner. So he sent my friend to the NY Military Academy in order to, beat some sense into his head. Well, through him, I met a lot of guys from South America to go out with them in Manhattan. It was amazing stories. These guys at 15 were like men. They had like hairy chests. They wore wool suits. They prowled the clubs of Manhattan at 15. They're pretty wild guys, those South Americans. Okay, I'll be back. What if the GOP brokers a brokered convention? What's going to happen then?
I don't see it. I think we're going to win it. I mean, look, the fighters, they go into unfriendly territory and they say the only way we're going to definitely come out ahead is the knockout. And you go for the knockout. I think that's what, I think really what happens here. We're going to have, I believe, a pretty good Tuesday. And if it's as good as we think, we're on our way, Mike.
I believe we made news today on the Savage Nation. Of course, everyone would like to say they do that. And I think Donald Trump just signaled that he knows something we don't know, that there will be no brokered convention, that the Republican fat cats are not going to stab him in the back, and more importantly, not stab the American people in the back. I hope that is what I heard. But if I were to write the byline on that story, it would be, Trump says no brokered convention on the Savage Nation. Welcome back to the program. Again, the phone number here is 855-497-282. This is an amazing day, both for me and the audience. I know many of you are excited by the chemistry between Donald and I. I mean, it's as real as it gets. One of the things you like about him is that he pulls no punches and he says it like it is. He speaks his mind. Well, guess what? Hello. I think that's why you've listened to the show all these years, if you have. He's the same kind of guy in terms of saying it like it is, speaking from his heart. Whether you like it or not, you're getting the unvarnished opinion of the man you are listening to. And it's what people are craving in this overly crafted universe that we live in, to put it very politely. Now, coming from south of the border is a man named Vicente Fox. I didn't know anything about him. I know that he was in favor of illegal immigration. I know he fostered illegal immigration. I know he tried to dump all of the unwanted of Mexico on America because we are so generous that we've taken care of them for so long. And again, that's not denigrating the Mexican people. I myself, you don't have to believe me, I happen to get along with people from Mexico. I like the people from Mexico. I've even come to love the music. I love the soul of the Mexican people. I love the boxing of Mexican people. I love the fight of the Mexican people. You're going to take me on my word. It's a whole reality. But for Vicente Fox to come along and attack Donald Trump, well, listen to clip 25 and tell me what you think of it.
I have to say I am not going to pay for that wall. I am not. And he should know that. And I'm not going to apologize. On the contrary, a real public servant, Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States, he said in Mexico, I have to apologize for this guy. I mean, it's not credible.
Well, Joe Biden ought to look in the mirror before he opens his mouth, because he's talking about himself. He ought to apologize for his looking the other way while his boss ripped off America and destroyed the military, destroyed our borders, destroyed our language, destroyed our culture, and destroyed our treasury. So, Joe, look in the mirror the next time you open your mouth. And then Vicente Fox, who, as far as I know, is not an American citizen, and 26 gets even worse. Listen now.
I mean, the debate yesterday is so poor compared to democratic debates. I mean, spending hours attacking each other without no contents in their proposals. Debates are to make proposals and not to attack each other and not to be presumptuous, arrogant, and say, me, and the rest go to hell. This is not what United States need.
No, what the United States needs is an American telling us what we need, not a Mexican telling us what we need. And let me tell you something else, Mr. Fox. I'll tell you something straight up, Mr. Fox, from the Savage Nation. The reason they attack each other is because of the Bolsheviks at CNN who pitted them against each other. And by the way, Mr. Fox, if the brave, whatever his name is, Woody Allen Blitzer there, if he asked the same tough questions of Hillary Clinton, I would like to see the sparks fly if there was really a campaign. But the only man who could have competed with her, they threw off the stage, who was a former Secretary of the Navy. His name was Jim Webb. Now, there was a man that even moderates could have supported. But the machine, the Hillary Clinton machine, the Hillary Clinton library machine, they destroyed Jim Webb before he even got on the stage. Instead, we have that sad sack commie from the gutters of New York. Okay, so you want to talk about proposals? Then put someone on the stage who can really attack Hillary Clinton on the fundamentals. And the reason you like Democrats is because they let the illegal aliens walk all over us. And because, frankly, Mr. Fox, we're not that stupid, the American people. $24 billion a year is sent home to Mexico by Mexican workers because they pay no taxes. And where do you think that's going? That's going into the Mexican economy. And $124 billion sent home by foreign workers in America who are not citizens. Where do you think that money's coming from? It's coming from we the people. So there's a good reason that Trump is popular, Mr. Fox. It's not based upon rhetoric, and it's not simply based upon pomposity, incidentally. Now, there's a little bit more that you have to hear. And the next one, Mr. Fox, says, Trump, well, listen to it yourself, 27.
In that chair sat President Washington, President Jefferson, President Reagan, all this Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Kennedy. I mean, that chair is for sensitive people, for people that has reason, that thinks, that has compassion. That's the most important word. Yeah. This guy says he's evangelical. Well, she should start learning a little bit about compassionate things. Evangelicals are promoters of love, promoters of communication, networking, team working, and especially spirituality. This guy is a material mass of 80 kilograms of body. No intelligence, no spirituality.
Boy, is he a threat to the corrupt world. My God, is he a threat to the corruption of Mexico and the corruption of the Democrat machine here in America. He is really freaking them out. For them to spend so much time attacking him tells you that he's doing the right thing. That's all I can tell you from personal experience. They are terrified that he will build a wall. He will stop the flow of drugs. He will make the people go home. He will make them pay for the wall. Even the simple idea that came up from this show, I never heard it before. Make them pay a transfer fee on every wire transfer that goes back to Mexico. 4%, make it 10%. Make them use that money specifically. Call it a wall tax, a wall fee. And all the money that gets sent out of America by foreigners who are working here not paying their fair share, tax at 10%. Not only could we build a wall, maybe we can restore the Treasury to some semblance of sanity and give the American people some of that money. So there's a lot of ways to fix things, and they're really freaking out because they've run all over us. They have defamed us. They've ripped the dress off the Statue of Liberty. I could say a few other words, but it's a family show. What these people have done to the Statue of Liberty is something that I can't say on a family show, but you know what I'm talking about. And now a man comes along who says, I'm going to put the shroud back on the Statue of Liberty, and we're going to give her her dignity back. And the people who have raped her all of these years are screaming that he's the bad guy in plain English. All right? So who's the bad guy here? Who's the bad guy here? Is it Donald Trump or all these guys who are telling us that he's no good? Vicente Fox isn't even an American citizen. You talk about ego, narcissism. 10 years ago, Mr. Fox went to Chicago on a white horse and rode down the main street in Chicago to cheering masses of Hispanic people. Is no ego in that, Mr. Fox? Riding a white horse with a cowboy outfit in Chicago, cheering to the cheering throngs of illegal aliens? It was unbelievable to me. So now you know what's at stake here, and I really worry for Donald Trump and his family. I'll be very honest with you. I don't know how he takes it day and night. I hope he has as good a security team as the President of the United States does, which would be unthinkable because I don't think he does. But believe me, they're going to get more and more desperate the closer he gets to the crown. And, you know, you want to look at what's done to candidates in Mexico? Just read a little history of it. It's very frightening. It's very frightening indeed. And this guy has the guts to stand up to them. But that's not the number one issue. The number one issue is everything else. And if you want to comment on the everything else, we can do that. Do we have anything else that we should fire right now? Because I have such sound that I don't want to lose it. We could play more of Rubio. I don't think that's too good. We have Rubio on Israel. Trump, I'm totally Israel. Wolf Blitzer, who I think is a criminal. I got to go back to Wolf Blitzer. I called him a lifetime Bolshevik, the oldest Bolshevik in the media. Wolf Blitzer is the oldest Bolshevik operative in the media because, and the most successful because he survived every incarnation at CNN. He's never been fired. You know why? Because he's a very, very useful Bolshevik. He is the most dangerous of all because he plays the little old man with the eyeglasses pretty good. He says, gentlemen, please calm down. We're just trying to have a debate here. That's after he pit them one against the other. This is the game they're playing. But as I said to you before, and I'll say it again, and frankly, I'm going to send this I did already send it to the campaign director for Donald Trump. I said, Mr. Trump is not obligated to answer questions from so-called moderators. There's no rule that says he has to answer them. Whether the moderator be Wolf Blitzer, or the lady from Univision, or the unknown talk show host with the silver hair who no one ever heard of. None of them have to answer the questions. All he had to say was, you're asking me about my tax returns, and I told you I will give them to you after the audits. But I want to ask you, why are you not talking about the Clinton Foundation money and the scam that they're allegedly running? Why don't you talk about the email scandal, Wolf? Why don't you ever ask Hillary Clinton about how many people may have died as a result of her email leaks? Wolf, and when Wolf tries to interrupt, they say, no, you listen to me, Wolf. You're coming at me pretty good. Why don't you open your big mouth on Hillary when you have her on the stage instead of polishing her high heels? Why don't you ask her about the email scandal and how many people died as a result of it, and then ask her a little bit more about Benghazi while you're at it, and then while you're at it, ask her a few more questions instead of making believe you're so tough. There's no rules that say a candidate cannot do that. Tell me where the rules are. What? He's going to be embarrassed to do that? That's what should be done, is go on the attack. That's what you want to do? Torah. I'll be right back. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
What if the GOP brokers a brokered convention? What's going to happen then?
I don't see it. I think we're going to win it. I mean, look, the fighters, they go into unfriendly territory, and they say the only way we're going to definitely come out ahead is the knockout. And you go for the knockout. I think that's what, I think really what happens here. We're going to have, I believe, a pretty good Tuesday. And if it's as good as we think, we're on our way, Mike.
The entire interview, which is 9 minutes long, will be on michaelsavage.com at the end of the show or thereabouts on the top right. This just came out. Political prediction market. Marco Rubio's odds dropped 10% after Christie endorsement. It's from Sophie Tatum of CNN, believe it or not. The gloves are off in Texas. Despite a well-received debate performance on Thursday night and a Friday spent battling it out with Donald Trump, Florida Senator Marco the Baby Rubio's odds at the Republican nomination have decreased after New Jersey Gov. Christie's unexpected endorsement of Trump, they say. According to the CNN political prediction market, Rubio's odds of winning the Republican nomination were 31% the morning after the debate, but have since dropped almost 10% to 21%. The political prediction market is a game sponsored by the company Pivot, which uses polls, player input, and other factors to predict where the election will go. The markets change depending on the public's input on candidates, chances of winning, blah, blah, blah. It should not be confused as a survey from real voters, so it's a game. But even this game, and believe me, the polls are no more accurate than this game, I would think. Trump, on the other hand, saw a jump in his odds of snatching the nomination after Christie's endorsement. Trump's odds went from 67% to 74%. In third place to win the Republican nomination, according to this game, is Senator Ted Cruz at 2%, followed by Ohio Governor Kasich at 1% and Ben Carson at 0%. So we'll see what happens. Super Tuesday is a big day. We are expecting Donald Trump back on the show on Monday. Obviously, that's a big day for him. And since the show is heard on, 250, 260 stations, whatever the number is, they're big stations across America. And on the East Coast, where, of course, many of you ask me in San Francisco, how come you're on, from noon to 3? I used to listen to you later. I said, because they wanted to move me into the most important slot on the East Coast, which is 3 hours later. It's 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 on the East Coast. And that's the Gold Coast of talk radio, and that's why they put me there. But having said that, whatever time you catch the show, and some get it on replay, you're going to want to hear the Monday show and the Tuesday show because, well, it's not going to end. This is getting more and more exciting. Last night was astounding to watch. I never saw anything as, the word desperate as the Rubio attacks. He said, well, he got what he deserved. I get it. Donald's a tough guy. He is a bully. So what? That's not a negative thing. Since when did bullying become a negative thing in a world filled with nasty bullies? I think we need someone who's capable of taking a bully and pushing back at him, frankly. You can call it bullying. I would say it's tough, whatever you want to say. A bully is someone who picks on smaller people, weaker people, and pushes them around. I wouldn't call what Trump does with his ego bullying. I would call it something else. It's the wrong word. It's a loaded word from the feminist Stalinist establishment. The feminist Stalinist establishment says anyone who says a word is a bully. Of course, they don't apply it to Black Lives Matter. That's an interesting thing. You got kids going into colleges, shooting their mouths off and interrupting professors who are 1,000 times better than them, screaming about this and about that. I would call that bullying, by the way. But I don't hear that coming out of them. But nevertheless, let's put that aside. So you say, well, Rubio gave it back to him pretty good. Well, he did. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think it did Rubio any good, number one. And number two, I thought Trump took it like a man. To be very honest with you, he didn't expect it. Rubio looked like he was on a milkshake, at least a milkshake with an extra dose of caffeine. Let's put it to you that way. Here, it makes you sweat. It's one of the things caffeine does, I hear, is it makes you sweat a lot. And your makeup melts off your face. There's too much caffeine in milkshakes. So he must add the milkshake with an extra dose of caffeine in it because he was schwitzing pretty good last night. And, all right, came out and he hit him first he hit Trump in the back, in the kidney, gave him a kidney punch. Then, like the little weasel he is, he went for his neck. All right, it's a street fight. I get it. He used every technique known to a street fighter to take down Trump. And for a while, I thought Trump was hurt pretty bad in the ring. And then I thought he was fighting back pretty well. And I think that's why he called for this emergency press conference today, which I didn't know what it would be. I had no idea what it was going to be. I kept asking people, well, what do you think it's going to be? And they said, well, it's Christie. He said, big deal. Then you look at it, and you know what? It was a very brilliant strategic move. Because...
Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
straightforward. The headline is Trump wins, the Savage Nation rules. Welcome to the program. If you care to join the program, it's 855-400-SAVAGE. Trump wins, the Savage Nation rules. Today's show is very clear. This program, the Savage Nation, has risen to national prominence through the current victories of Donald Trump. For 21 years, my message has been borders, language, and culture. My last 3 to 4 best-selling books, if you look at them, which you're going to scan today, you'll see my solutions for saving America. And many of these bullet points or talking points have been and are being used by the Trump campaign to the credit of Donald Trump and, of course, to the benefit of the United States of America. And I'm going to take credit not for getting out the vote. I certainly wouldn't take credit for that. I did not do that. But for being the architect of Trump's messaging. There is no way to refute that. Everyone who understands the realities of what Trump is saying and why he is popular understands it's related to what I have written going back several books now and what I've said on radio since 1994. And I'm going to begin today with Trickle Up Poverty. That's 4 books ago or 3 books ago. I will read to you what I wrote then and tell me how it differs in any way to what Donald Trump has been proposing. Remember this. I've been on the air for 21 years. My message has been consistent. Borders, language, and culture. Tell me how that differs from Donald Trump's Make America Great Again. It's almost the same message. It's a single slogan in his case. People need single slogans. Of course, it's not the same exact slogan. But fundamentally, Make America Great Again means borders, language, and culture. We all inherently know that. And so today we're going to look at some of the points that I have raised in these books, and you'll come to understand why the Savage Nation has now risen to the top of the American mind, and the Savage Nation is now winning. A listener on Facebook wrote this. He said, in the words of Mark Twain, in the beginning of change, the patriot is a scarce man, and brave, and hated, and scorned. When his cause succeeds, the timid join him, for then it costs nothing to be a patriot. Everything that has been and is being said about Donald Trump has been and is being said about Michael Savage from the beginning. The very same attacks. He's crude. He's vulgar. He's this. He's that. He's going to destroy the conservative movement by being so vulgar and so rude and so crude. Well, guess what? The people love it. And there's a reason the people love it. And I'll tell you why. I think I've told you why over the last few days. It's quite clear why the people love it. I said that Trump is like a cage fighter, and we want him to bloody our enemies. We want him to vanquish our enemies. We are so sick and tired of seeing America dragged through the mud. We are so sick and tired of seeing enemies, domestic and foreign, kicking America in the teeth, virtually tearing the hair out of the Statue of Liberty and stepping on her cloak. We're sick of it. And we have someone who we think can stand up for America in plain English. Is that clear? I mean, what do you think? It's not like rocket science what's going on here. It's very clear. We've all been waiting for someone to come along to carry the banner of America. I don't have to say that Obama has not done that. I mean, that's a given. It's an emptiness that is filled by the obvious. Many people have said we need a man on a white horse. He's the man on the white horse. As imperfect as he is, he's the man on the white horse. He's the gladiator. There he is. There he is. It's that simple. Now, I'll go into the details of the books in a little while, but I want to talk about that in a general way for a second. I look back on my life and I look back on Donald Trump's life, and it's very interesting to me. We come from different sides of the tracks in Queens, New York. You may not know that. I've said it before. Many of you have never heard it. Union Turnpike is a long street that runs down the center of a large portion of Queens, New York. On one side, there were some wealthier enclaves, including the one that Donald Trump grew up in, Jamaica Estates, which was near Cunningham Park. The houses were beautiful. I haven't been there in so many years, I don't know what they look like. Today, they probably look like small houses to me, in the sense of where I live, what I've become, and such. I happen to live in a small 2,000 square foot cottage, incidentally. I have residences in other places. I never go to them. I'll be honest with you. But he lived in a mansion in short order. I lived on the other side of the boulevard, Utopia Parkway, where there were attached houses and semi-attached houses. If you know what a row brick house is, they were built all over middle America. lower middle class America. And they were the first step up from apartments for many poor people. And we came from an immigrant family. We lived in a rental apartment in the Bronx, New York. And we first moved to Queens, New York to a rental, the upstairs floor, I'll never forget it, of an attached house on 170-something street. And to me, it was a paradise. There was a green lawn in the backyard. Could walk to school without stepping over garbage or being bitten by a rat or attacked by anyone in the streets. It was the promised land. And it was interesting to me that as my father worked harder and harder, we wanted to buy a house. We kids, of course, couldn't wait. And so we bought this little 20-foot by 100-foot lot house attached to the neighbors on both sides. It had a little garden. It had an upstairs, a downstairs, and a basement. It had a little garage below it. It was the American dream. We had made it. Of course, we wanted to move across Union Turnpike to the estates. We knew we'd never get there. We thought we'd never get there. Well, the point is, we breathe the same air. Now, I went to Jamaica High School. I then went to Queens College. I never went to a so-called private college. I wished I could have, but we didn't have the money, and I didn't have the ability to go there because my father wouldn't pay for it. It's that simple. He said to me, if you can't get a scholarship, you're not going. Either you earn it on your own or do whatever you have to do. He said, I'm not paying for it. I hated him for it, I'll be honest with you. I never forget, as long as I live, what he said to me one day in a car. I turned red when he said to me, I'm not paying for any private college. If you want to go to a city college. Whatever you're going to do in life, you're going to do on your own. And what does this have to do with Donald Trump? I'm an outsider. Is he an outsider, really? I don't know. He's built skyscrapers all over the world. He's built golf clubs all over the world. What have I built? My books are my buildings. My books are my buildings. I've always been a person of ideas. I've always been a person of ideas, and I built my buildings in my books. My books, if you stood them up and you made an island and you put the books up on their spines, I would say those are my buildings. And maybe they'll last, some of them. Some of the ideas will. Maybe they won't. But those are my buildings. And many of the ideas in the books are being used right now in America, and they're becoming the parlance of America. People are allowed to say it freely now without shame. They're not embarrassed. They're not afraid. I received an email this morning. I won't read the man's name because it was in confidence, from a major news organization that has blacklisted me, Fox News. They won't let me on. Well, this man's been inviting me on for 2 times now. And he asked me to debate the candidacy of Donald Trump this weekend in front of 500 students at the Students for Liberty conference. And I said, I can't go there. But I wrote this. I said, you have no idea how honored I am to be considered for this important debate. I would love to do it, but the travel is impossible for me. Trump is hated because of many factors. 1, his message is that of the savage nation. I've been preaching borders, language, and culture since 1994. 2, he is outside the political structure and therefore a threat to the established political order. 3, he is pompous, arrogant, crude, and bullying, exactly what the people want in a new leader filled with so many vicious threats, both internal and external. You can quote me if you wish during the debate. I will actually be reading this on my show today. It's my topic. The savage nation rises. Trump's victories reflect our message. That's the beginning of the program. I don't want to dip into the books yet and prove to you that what I'm saying is 100% true, but I will do so shortly. Again, if you care to join the conversation, the phone number is 855-407-2882. Let me go back, actually, now that I have a few seconds here, to Trickle Up Poverty, which was the first bestseller in a long sequence of one bestseller after another. It was published at a time in I don't even know the year anymore. The time has flown, 2010. God, where has the time gone? But if you look at the back of the book, and many of you bought the book and read the book and passed the book around, I put together a list at the back of the book called The Savage Manifesto, Borders, Language, Culture, and Economics. It was chapter 11 of Trickle Up Poverty. And I quoted Albert Einstein, where he says, the world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. I heard that in many different ways when I was growing up. And so I wrote the book, and I wrote some ideas. And tell me how they differ from Make America Great Again. Close the borders. I'm quoting my own book now. Use illegal aliens to build a wall between the United States and Mexico. Hire Sheriff Joe Arpaio to oversee the project. Pay the illegals for their labor in the form of a one-time worker fee. Upon finishing, repatriate them. Next, defend the borders. Pull the troops out of Germany and South Korea where they're doing nothing and put them on our southern border where there's a real threat to our citizens. Defending South Korea can be done with our ships and subs with their tactical nuclear weapons. Next, I wrote, defund and repeal Obamacare. Sound familiar? I wrote, remember how the Schechter brothers overturned FDR's socialism? Sue on the grounds of religious freedom. Use Schechter brothers' strategy from Chapter 5. Next, reduce the size and scope of government. The federal government is bloated. With the exception of the military and defense, reduce all departments in size by 4% each year for a total reduction of size by 16% over 4 years. Require government employees to speak English and to have achieved at least a high school diploma. You may not know that that's no longer, those are not requirements under Barry. Oil for illegals, I wrote, in Trickle Up Poverty. Mexico has what we want, oil, and we have something they don't want, their unemployed citizens. To offset this alien invasion, Mexico should pay 1 barrel of oil per month per illegal alien that sneaks into our country. Americans are also owed tens of billions of dollars in reparations from Mexico for the generous free health care, welfare, and ACLU care they've received for 5 decades. Next, I said, strike down the anchor babies law. Eliminate the loophole in our law that encourages illegal immigrants to enter the country for the purpose of having anchor babies who become instant U.S. citizens simply because they happen to have been born in our hospitals. Next, I wrote, export jailed illegal aliens. Our federal, state, and local jails are overcrowded with 2,396,002 inmates as of 2008. Well, it's much higher now. Of that number, 29% are illegal aliens. That means approximately a third of our prisons are filled with non-citizens. I wrote they don't even belong here, yet we're paying an average of $29,000 per year to house, feed, clothe, and entertain them. It's higher now. Send them back to the country of origin. Next, I wrote, use profiling to prevent terror attacks. Does that sound familiar to those of you who are doubting Thomases? The attempted terrorist plots on our own soil follow a definite pattern. All these acts were carried out by radical Muslims. Shrewd police work requires common sense. If acts of terror repeatedly come from people who practice a certain religion, and if all these acts are in accord with some twisted notion of their holy book, prudent police work would dictate that we immediately employ national, if not religious, profiling to stop the next terrorist before he or she succeeds. It takes the breath out of me to have to even read that recently the ACLU sued the New York Police Department and made them remove one of the most important documents ever written by police. I next wrote this, name the enemy. Identify radical Islam as the enemy. Demand that the Attorney General, in that case Eric Holder, stop scrubbing federal policies and communications of truly descriptive words such as terrorist and jihad and Islam and start telling it like it is. Furthermore, don't extend the rights guaranteed to American citizens to enemy combatants. Don't prosecute them in civilian courts. That's eerily chilling me because Obama now wants to bring the worst terrorists on the planet from Gitmo to America to afford them all of the benefits and protections that we as citizens so proudly have. One of my next points was impose tariffs on China. Many of these points in the Savage Manifesto that are found in Trickle Up Poverty are what's making America great again, the slogan that's making Trump rise again. Trump wins, the Savage Nation rules. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth and financial future. Call 1-800-289-26. It is the Savage Nation. Trump wins, the Savage Nation rules. So where do we go from here? Well, we'll have to wait and see where we go from here. He seems to be unstoppable. It's a reaction to what this creature in the White House has done to us, what the feminists have done to us, what the illegal aliens have done to us, what the lawyers have done to us, what the Islamists are doing to us. And the question is, will he go all the way? I hope so. But I want to go back to what I'm saying, and I'm going to take credit for it, because there's an adage from a great man in the 1300s, or in the 1100s, sorry, when he wrote, "If I am not for myself, who will be? If I am only for myself, who am I?" I never forgot that one when I learned it about 25 years ago. And we're living in an age where you have to promote yourself. No one's going to do it for you. And I live in a very competitive business. It's one of the most competitive businesses in the world, talk radio. There's no support fundamentally. There's no lights, cameras, action, no women, no legs, no lipstick, no high heels, no flashing lights. Basically, what we live on are ideas and our voice and our delivery. You think about that one. Think about a show that we're doing in radio, all of us. It's a one-man show with some great support, but nevertheless, it's a one-man show with callers. But it comes out of our head, our heart, and our soul. But if we don't have the ideas, we're not going to last in this business. It's as simple as that. If there's no fundamental basis to our what we are saying, if it's just hot air, we come and we go, like the liberal radio shows have come and gone. The Savage Nation right now, the ideas that you've heard on this show for as many years, months, or days you've been listening to it, are why Trump is popular. Our time has come. Our time has come. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Our time is now. Borders, language, culture. No one has more consistently professed, expounded, lobbied for, filibustered for America than I have in talk radio. No one. There have been others who are great. Everyone has their own following. There's a lot of overlap. It's a long day part, room for everyone. But no one has articulated the message of borders, language, and culture as long as I have, as consistently as I have, through thick and through thin, through rain, through snow, through depression, through manic, through ups, through downs, through sickness, through health, from winter to summer to fall to spring, around and around and around. I never let up. On borders, language, and culture, I never let up, no matter what impediment was thrown at me. And believe me, I've had many impediments thrown at me. There will be many more thrown at me. Trust me on that one. And thus far, I've been fortunate enough to overcome every one of them. My career ended, then it started again. I was banned in Britain, but not banned in America. I've been reviled while being copied. I can put up with all of it, because today is a day of victory. I was the first one in talk radio to back Donald Trump, and I'm proud to tell you that I hope Donald Trump goes all the way, because if the witch wins, this country will devolve into civil war. Let me be very clear. I watched that woman last night for a few minutes during a so-called town hall, and I saw the face of evil. I saw pure evil. I saw a combination of Winnie Mandela. All she needed was a series of tires and telling people to go out and get the tires and do the necklacing. I have never seen anything as vile as Hillary Clinton was last night. Vile in her racism and stirring up hatred between blacks and whites. It's as clear as a bell to me what this woman is, and that she will stoop to the lowest possible level. She'd set the nation on fire to gain power. She must be stopped at all costs. Here is a woman who has violated every rule of government. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent. The woman has violated every protocol of government service with her email scandal. Any other employee of the government would be in prison now, certainly indicted by now. Look what they did to General Petraeus for 1/1000th of what she did. How does she get away with it? And if you want that kind of despot running America, my friend, you are inviting civil war and total chaos in this country. And that's why Donald Trump is our only hope and our last hope. And frankly, I think that's exactly why he's come along at this time. If I were to look back on his life, and I don't know him that well, I've read his autobiography, I've read his biographies, I've studied a little bit, I would say this man was groomed to be a leader his whole life. I would say he was groomed to be the president his whole life. Say, wow, what do you mean? He's so crude, he's so rude, he's so arrogant, he's so pompous, he's so bullying. You mean he lets himself be seen for what he is? As opposed to a faker like Obama who makes believe he's Mr. Nice Guy while putting a knife in our back? While literally ripping the dress off the Statue of Liberty and throwing her into New York Harbor? But he smiles and he acts like Mr. Nice Guy, tells us that he's a constrained guy when it comes to the budget, while he's blown the budget through the ceiling, destroyed the national debt ceiling, telling us he controls it. No, my friends, people want honesty. And what I hear over and over and over again from people who like Trump, even though they don't like some of his policies, it's consistent. He's not owned by anyone. He's not beholden to anyone. He's not a career politician. Nobody owns him. Isn't that what you hear? Isn't that why you like the guy? That's why you like the guy. Now, who was the first one in the media not only to support Donald Trump, me, but who was the one who also told you that he's going to get a huge percentage of the Hispanic vote? Why did I say that to you? What do you think? I just made it up out of hot air? Remember that I have a very, how shall I say, rigorous background in the field of studying, learning, reading. I did it for years and years and years and years and years. I said it because I studied Donald Trump and I realized something about Hispanics, Hispanic men in particular, if you can generalize for anyone, and you can more or less generalize to a certain extent. I said Hispanics don't want a woman telling them what to do. It's a macho culture. Did I say that, Robert? Hispanics in particular, it's a macho culture. And they don't want a woman hectoring them and telling them how to live or taking care of them. They don't want it. And most Hispanics that I've seen come here, they want the American dream. Let me be very clear. I walk around. I bicycle past. I'll give you a simple example. I bicycle by a series of 5 to 7 houses that are being built. I watched them go up from dirt. And I've watched the workers. I've seen the industriousness of the workers. From the time the ground was bulldozed to the finish work, which is now going on the houses, the painting, the gardening that's going in. It's all Hispanic workers. And I say, my God, what industrious people these people are. Look how hard they work. What do you think, I'm blind? And I know what they want. Some of them at the lower level of the skilled laborer or unskilled laborer side, they drive broken cars or they come to work with friends who bring them here. On the upper end of the laborer side, they have new trucks or almost new trucks. And they all go home, I can guarantee you, to a wife and children. That I can guarantee you. It's part of their culture. And what does a man who has a wife and children or a wife and a child want for himself and his family? He wants a better life. And who is going to give him that chance at a better life? An old woman who screams about how bad the country is and tries to pit one race against the other? Or a man who has built buildings all over the world and is a billionaire? A man who gives them hope that they can be richer in this country. They look at him and they say, I want to be like him. They don't look at him and hate him. Like that creep Bernie Sanders, that gutter rat who tried to stir up hatred in the country because he's a loser. A loser who couldn't get anywhere in this country. A lifetime Lower East Side soapbox loser preaching hatred for preaching class warfare because he couldn't even make a dime. The bum couldn't even be a carpenter. Yeah, ask his friends, read his biography. He tried to be a carpenter when he was a young hippie. Couldn't even be a carpenter. All he could do was preach hatred, Bernie Sanders, and class warfare. They said he wouldn't stop talking about how much he hated the rich. So now he's gone up in flames. Why would any Hispanic vote for him? Why would any man vote for a man like that unless he himself was a resentful human being? So now you look at this Trump. Yeah, we know all of his negatives. I don't have to repeat them. What's the point of repeating them? So what? So what? In the world that we live in, we don't need someone who's over the top, bigger than life. Someone who's going to stare down our enemies and tell them to go you know where. Someone who's not afraid to stand up to our enemies, domestic and foreign. It was interesting to me that over the weekend, even Harry Reid said something nice about Donald Trump. I thought that was amazing. Harry Reid, who's not afraid of any Republicans because they're all wimps. And Harry Reid, who was a former boxer, likes a good fight. And he only respects power and he only respects winners. Men who are willing to get in the ring and fight with him. And he hates the Republicans because he has no respect for them. He knows they're a bunch of nobodies. A bunch of pink-tied crybaby, probably on Prozac, all of them. Every other day, another Republican was breaking down in tears on the floor. Where is he now, John Boehner? Where is that guy the capitulator, the Quisling of our time. Where'd he go? So Harry Reid had no respect for them. Over the weekend, Harry Reid suddenly had respect for Donald Trump. He said, although I don't agree with his ideas, at least he's honest. He said he's like me, he says what he believes. Harry Reid said that. And the rest of them, the corrupt ones, they're terrified. They're shaking in their boots. They are burning emails around the clock. They got the paper shredders running in offices from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., because they're afraid that there's a new sheriff coming to town, and they're afraid they're going to wind up in the slammer. Make no mistake about it. The corruption in America at this point under this guy in the White House has never been this high. Never in this century. Certainly never in the last century. I never saw anything like it. I never read about corruption at this level. Never. What do I mean by corruption? Oh, come on. The green gangsters. You just touch that one. You just lift up that green rock, and you can see the Salenterates crawling away, who've been feasting on the humus of corruption. The green gangsters from San Francisco, they're terrified. And they're afraid they're going to get caught. Here in San Francisco, there was a guy, Leland Yee. You probably don't know him nationally. He was just given jail time today, I think 5 years. He was a state senator. State senator. You'd think he was untouchable. He was arrested, took a long time. He was tried for corruption the FBI caught him on a tape trading, I don't know what it was for money, bribes for some kind of a bill. Well, he's going away for 5 years. And it's sending a chill right up and down the most corrupt city in the United States of America, San Francisco. Now, remember, this started not under Obama, the case against Leland Yee. It started under a previous U.S. attorney, I believe. I don't think that could ever happen. But let me get back to Donald Trump. They hate him because they fear him. And I'm taking credit today because I was the first talk show host in America to support him. Not because I know him, not because I've been promised anything, because I haven't. And I would take a loyalty oath. I'd swear on a Bible. I would take you could take my deposition if you wanted. I would be willing to go to a court of law and swear on a Bible that I have never, ever discussed with Donald Trump anything to do with my life before, after, in politics. We've never, ever met. I met him only once in my entire life, casually in passing, at his club in Boca Raton, Florida. He was very cordial to me, as was his wife and his young son. That was it. And then one other time I was there. That's right. I was there one other time. Never asked me anything about what I would want for my support, because he wasn't running at the time. Nor did I say, hey, Donald, I'll support you if. I never did any of that. Take me to a court of law. I'll take that oath right now. I hope everyone else in talk radio could take the same oath. But the point is, here we are. Trump wins, the Savage Nation rules. My solutions for saving America from my books are being used by the Trump campaign to his credit. And I'm going to take credit, not for getting out the vote. I certainly didn't do that. That's not what I did. I didn't do that for the last few months or weeks. Did I come here and tell you to vote for him? I never did. I just told you why I like him. And why do I like him? Because many of his ideas are my ideas. Some of them probably were heard on my show by him over the years, either directly or indirectly. I want you to remember what I just said to you. I wasn't born yesterday, and I didn't start in talk radio yesterday. 1994, I became a national host in the year 2000. From the year 2000, I was heard across America. At different time slots, it doesn't really matter. People get into cars at different times of the day. They heard this gravelly New York voice in New York. I used to be on WOR. I've been on WABC now for a long time. For a while, I was off the air in New York. Then I was back on the air in New York. And everyone in New York who has a brain heard me at some point, whether they got into their limo or their taxi cab. I know many of you are taxi drivers and you run my show in your cabs live and loud. You have for years. I get a lot of emails on that. Whether you got into your limo. I knew a network TV president's wife who lived on Park Avenue, who told me that she would have her driver stop the car outside the garage just to listen to my show every day. I've had a huge success in New York in ideas. It doesn't matter how high the ratings were or this or that. I'm talking about ideas. My books are my buildings. Donald Trump is a builder who's built magnificent buildings in New York, Atlantic City, Florida, golf clubs, Dubai, I don't even know where, all over the world. He's a builder. I wouldn't know the first thing about building a one-story house. I wouldn't know how to put a foundation down. He does. Think of the people he's had to work with to build those buildings. Think of all of the complexity to get the unions in line, to get the concrete poured and not stopped, to get the electricians not to walk off the job. Do you know what is involved with that? That's exactly why he's going to be a great president, because he knows how to negotiate. And I mean, I could denigrate some of the other candidates, but what's the point? They're losing. They're losing. The people already in their own way understand all of this. Most of them that I know of have done nothing in their life except be politicians. The only ones that are on the stage who've done anything that I can tell on the Republican side who've been something other than politicians are Donald Trump, whose buildings speak for him, and Ben Carson, who's done something real. He's a surgeon, and a great surgeon at that, a pediatric neurosurgeon. I have to repeat to you over and over again. You cannot become a pediatric neurosurgeon through affirmative action. You cannot. It's impossible. You have to perform. And if you don't perform, you don't become a pediatric neurosurgeon. It's not like community organizing. I'll be back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hey, our Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust for wealth insurance, gold and silver. Call 800-BUICO.
I'll tell you what we're going to do, right? We get greedy, right? Now we're going to get greedy for the United States. We're going to grab and grab and grab. We're going to bring in so much money and so much everything. We're going to make America great again, folks. I'm telling you, we're going to make America great again.
That's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. 40 actions to save America. We're having a victory lap today on the Savage Nation. Trump wins, the Savage Nation rules. We've now risen to national prominence through the victories of Donald Trump. 21 years, the same message, borders, language, culture. And many of my solutions or talking points have been and are being used by the Trump campaign. And I'm going to take credit for being the first in talk radio to strongly, I did not equivocally back Donald Trump. I strongly backed Donald Trump. I didn't hedge my bets. I didn't one day say I may be for him, not for him, then I'm for Cruz, then I'm for Rubio. I never said that, ever. I was very clear why I was for him, because he was saying what I was writing. Whether he wrote it on his own or someone wrote it for him or he thought it, the man has common sense, for God's sakes. The other candidates speak like academics or politicians. One of my actions to save America in Government Zero is repair our relations with Russia. Hasn't Trump said he would reach out to Russia while that dummy Cruz basically said he wants to go to war with Russia? What more clarity do you need than that one alone? Common sense, my friends.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
What this military will look like after a few years of a Trump presidency, after what this man has in the White House has done to the armed forces of the United States of America. I just closed my eyes as we were playing the Anchors Away song. I envisioned our ships sailing proudly across the sea, as opposed to sailors crying like little girls when they were captured by Iranians with a little gunboat. I just thought about that. I just thought about what the Navy would do if the Iranians even came near our ships. They'd blow them right out of the water. That's what would happen. They'd blast them to Allah land, where they belong. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Savage Nation. Today is a victory lap in case you just joined us. Trump wins, the Savage Nation rules. You can read it on michaelsavage.com or on my Facebook page. I will be on the air, by the way, One of my listeners just reminded me, for 22 years in a month. It'll be 22 years this March 24th. What shall I say? I didn't even know it myself. It was a long time. It's a fifth of a century. I don't even want to think about it, because I start to get into the relativity of time when I do that. It's not a good thing to do. But my message has been borders, language, and culture quite consistently. And tell me how that differs from Donald Trump's Make America Great Again. It's almost the same message. He uses a single slogan. So as the slogan goes, it's not the same. But fundamentally, Make America Great Again means borders, language, and culture. What else do you think it means? We all know that. And I've showed you some of the points that I have written, and I will take credit for it. From Government Zero, 4 of the first 5 actions to save America in my book all involve immigration, the single thing that started Trump's campaign on a roll. And they include closing the border completely for 7 years, deporting illegals in our prisons, repealing the anchor baby loopholes, and making English our official language. In Zero's strategy against ISIS, the explanation is laid out as to why we have to profile while also stopping Muslim hordes from coming into the country. Another position Trump has been lambasted for in the media, while he echoed my positions on radio and in my writings. Another example, in Zero Business Sense, on page 256 of Government Zero, Trump echoes Savage in talking about China's currency manipulation, which is costing America jobs and giving them an unfair advantage in trade policy. Trump has named names when it comes to conservative Supreme Court justices he would appoint. Recognizing the urgency of the matter, Savage points out on pages 9 and 10 and pages 39 and 40 the very same thing. Finally, from Government Zero, Donald Trump recognizes that climate change has its roots in Marxism, and also sees the damage the Pope is doing by promoting this, as is pointed out starting on page 214 of Government Zero in the great chapter, Lenin's Pope. This is the Savage Nation. The phone number is 855-407-282. If you care to join the program, we have one open line, and I'm going to take calls in a moment. Lao Tzu, Chinese philosopher, wrote, if you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading. If you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading. I realize it's odd for an American to think that way, but it has a great meaning. I've always had a very Chinese outlook towards life, no matter what impediments have been thrown at me. You can ask my family. You know what I said to them from the time my kids were little? I used an American Indian phrase with my kids when they were 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. I would take them for walks in the woods, and I would say the Indians were Native Americans who preceded us on this continent had a saying, look to the mountaintop. No matter how dark the valley was, no matter how dismal the valley was that you were in, look to the mountaintop. And I've walked through many valleys. I've walked through chasms where there was no light. I've been in the darkest of forests. I always look to the mountaintop. And I'm not saying that I'm at a mountaintop right now, but I'm telling you what I feel right now. Many of you know, having listened for so many years, that I'm a very intuitive person. I have to tell you that I think that fate or God has a bigger fate for me than where I am right now. You say, well, where do you want to go? I don't know where. Sometimes you have to go with fate. You can't control fate. You can control your destiny only up to a certain point, and then destiny itself kicks in. I have a feeling that destiny, God, or nature, or fate has a bigger something for me than this. Now, what is bigger than this? What is bigger than this? Sitting in an office somewhere with a suit on in Washington, D.C., telling people what to do, giving out contracts and grants, dismissing people, firing people, hiring people? That's not me. There's never been me. I can't stand that life. Now, those who are good at it, I'm not one of those people. So don't think I'm angling for a job if Donald Trump wins and he even offered it to me. I have no idea if he's going to win. I hope he does. I've never asked him for anything. I'm going to do it again. I'll get out the Bible. I'll take an oath right here on this show. I have never asked him for, nor has he ever offered any favors for supporting his candidacy. And it's a challenge I present to everyone in the media. Say the same thing about your candidates and your situation, because I just said it about my pick. I didn't pick him for any personal gain. I picked him because his views reflected my own. And that's why it's a day of victory for you, the listeners who have supported me by listening to the show. You weren't just listening to the show because you like my voice or you like my shtick or my diversions. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But you also fundamentally are listening because my ideas mirror your ideas for America's future and what we needed to save us. And boy, we've been through some very, very bad times. We're not out of the woods yet. It's not over. If the witch wins, there'll be civil war in America. She will pit one race against the other. I watched her last night for a few minutes at the town hall meeting. I never saw anything as disturbing. That's the only word I can think of as her. She was literally pulling a Winnie Mandela on America. She was fueling the hatred of whites by blacks in order to get ahead. This is a frightening thing to watch. I don't even have to mention Bernie Sanders. All you got to do is mention Hillary Clinton. Pitting blacks against whites to get ahead at a time like this, throwing fuel on the fire, being incendiary by feeding the big lie that there's white privilege, that the game is stacked against blacks. It was sickening. We have a black. All I said to myself was, what am I listening to? We have a black president, a black attorney general, a good portion of the executive branch of the government is run by African Americans. What the heck is she talking about? And again, she feeds the big lie like it's the Jim Crow South. Again, fueling those people who have hatred in their souls to express that hatred in the most horrible ways. Everything is at stake right now in this election. And that's why Donald Trump is liable to win, because even Democrats know what's going on. Even Democrats don't like Hillary Clinton. They don't like her at all. They've seen her in action. I'll tell you another little secret. Women don't like Hillary Clinton. The older women don't like Hillary Clinton. Maybe the younger ones do, but I don't think even millennials, another name for them. The younger, the college girls. No, they like the idiot Bernie Sanders. They fell for his act, the Pied Piper of class warfare. They went for it because they don't know any better. They were raised on Adderall and Marx, a toxic combination. Adderall and Marx. Adderall and Marx, a toxic combination. And along comes Grandpa telling them it's good to hate someone with something and take it from them because they all stole it from you. So they bought it. But the older women don't like Hillary Clinton. They love Donald Trump. There's actually I'm going to try to pick the right word. There's a romance with Donald Trump. There's almost a frenzy for Donald Trump in America right now. And that's going to help a lot. His family, very interesting. You didn't see them in the beginning, did you? It was all based on his Build a Wall. It was all based on Build a Wall. That's what set him off. Right out of my books. Now, did he get it from my books? No, probably not. It's common sense, Build a Wall. You don't have to get it from my book, Stop the Coming Civil War, or Trickle Up Poverty, or Trickle Down Tyranny, or Government Zero. He didn't have to get it from my books. It's common sense, Build a Wall. It worked for the Israelis. Notice there have been no suicide bombs in Israel for quite a while now. The very same dark forces of liberalism that told the Israelis they were racist for wanting to live, that they were racist for wanting to see their children grow up without being blown up in a cafe in Tel Aviv. And don't build that wall, you Israelis. No, leave. No wall. Let them come in and blow your children up. Well, the Israelis went ahead and built the wall, and guess what? The bombs stopped going off inside Israel. Despite what the liberals told them, the bombs don't go off anymore. Well, let me tell you something. When that wall goes up with Mexico, you're going to see a big change in the United States of America. You'll see changes you could never believe. If that wall is starting, if Trump wins, you're going to see a huge emigration out of America, by the way, on its own. On its own volition, there'll be a monstrous emigration out of this country. Because the people are going to know what's coming, and they're going to say, you know what, I better get out while I can. I don't want any trouble, and they're going to start going home. They'll repatriate themselves. A large repatriation will occur spontaneously, incidentally. There will also be a curtailment of the flow of drugs into the United States of America. Do you have to be a genius to understand that? What do you think is going to happen if there's a wall that is policed by the Border Patrol? Do you think we're going to have what we have now with the drug epidemic? It's going to dry up on its own to a great extent. Not overnight. That'll only end when they arrest the pharmaceutical manufacturers of OxyContin and they get serious with prosecuting the crime of drug dealing. But that's a separate story. I don't even know where Donald Trump stands on that. I want to come back to the show today of Actions to Save America, the Victory Lap. And I want to talk about so many different things all at once. It's hard for me to keep up with it. I want to get to the sound that the guys put together for you today on the show. But I want to start with the calls because the other day I did a no-call show. Yesterday we had some decent calls. So we're opening up right now at 855-400-7282. Let's go to Sophie on WABC in New York. Sophie, make your point. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I totally agree with the parallels that you're making between yourself and Donald Trump. I want to make the point that it's more than just an idea, two ideas coming together. This is more than synchronistic. It's a manifestation of the movement of the new American spirit that you're talking about. I think Donald Trump is exactly the person who's going to bring that. And I want to point out how his wife came here in 1996 as an immigrant legally, a cultured woman speaking multiple languages. If you told her in 1996 that she was going to be First Lady in 20 years, you can finish the sentence.
Oh, she is the American dream. It's interesting, though. We have a First Lady right now who was born here who hated America until she found out she'd get a lot of stuff when she became First Lady. Then she decided she loved America. Compare her with a foreigner, so to speak, who loved America before she got here. What an interesting comparison that is, don't you think?
Exactly. She is the American dream made real. Made real. This movement is the movement that is occurring now is the American dream again. And you said...
Can you imagine if Melania becomes First Lady? She'll be the Jackie Kennedy of our time. Do you know that?
Absolutely.
How come no one said that yet? Because I've said it. I said it yesterday. She'll be the new Jackie Kennedy. Cultured, multiple languages, beautiful, gracious, elegant. America will be seen again for what it always has been until it was tarnished and trashed by American haters, and I don't even have to name them. All right, so let me ask you this, Sophie. You're totally into this Donald Trump phenomenon. Do you agree with me that middle-aged women do not trust Hillary Clinton and won't vote for her, even if they're Democrats?
You're absolutely right. I would never vote for her. She will not get elected. I'm going to put my stamp on that.
No, but I'm saying, I don't know are you a Republican or a Democrat, you yourself?
You know, the 60s Democrat turned Republican.
Oh, I don't remember. Okay, you are an ex-hippie 60s Democrat, anti-war movement girl. So, do you know other women from your generation who see the world the same way as you do?
Not too many. I think those who were more politically aware, as I had become, can see through somebody like Hillary Clinton. She's a liar and a thief. The other women who are just part of the old establishment will not leave because they just don't have any comfort zone. She's their comfort zone.
Did you watch Hillary Clinton stirring up race hatred last night at the so-called town hall? Were you as appalled as I was?
I cannot look at that woman for more than a few minutes because they do get
She was as close to becoming Winnie Mandela in our generation as I've ever seen. All she needed was a bunch of black tires. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Your Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust for tangible assets, gold and silver. Call 800-BUICO. It's a very, very interesting time in American history, as we all know. We all sense it, even if we can't define exactly what it is we're feeling. We know that there is a turning point right now after 8 years of what we've had. I don't have to further define what I've written in 3 books. We have a chance to go in the other direction. And so far in the other direction that America will be great again. It's that simple. Because America's not great right now. We're a laughing stock on the world stage. On a military level, it's a tragedy to see sailors crying after being captured without firing a shot. It's unbelievable that a president would reduce the morale in the military to this level. That he would talk about freeing some of the worst terrorists on the planet and giving them never a serious threat. We know that he was handpicked by the Democrat machine to make Hillary Clinton look centrist. And we heard some of the things that were said last night by Hillary Clinton, which tells us that if she, God forbid, wins, it will be like South Africa in America right now. America will become like South Africa. She's basing all of it upon a demagoguery unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. Class warfare, race warfare, stirring up one race against the other. There she is. And if you think the military has been feminized and weakened, you're right, but it'll be much worse under her. She wants to bring terrorists to the U.S. So, I mean, what choice do we really have? It's not between, let's say Donald Trump is the candidate of choice. One of the others could win, I doubt it, but it looks like he's unstoppable. And I hope he makes up with Cruz and Rubio and incorporates them in some way in the new administration. What's the choice between Trump and Hillary? You're telling me as a conservative you're going to vote for Hillary because he's not pure enough? Is that what you're saying? You're that stupid?
We won the evangelicals. We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. We're the smartest people. We're the most loyal people. And you know what I really am happy about? Because I've been saying it for a long time. 46% with the Hispanics. 46%. Number one with Hispanics.
And Donald, you're right. And who was the first one in the media to say that you would draw a large number of Hispanics? Me, Michael Savage. I didn't have to read it somewhere and then repeat it like I invented it. I was the first to say it because I have common sense. I also have my ear to the ground. I also walk around and I talk around. I look around and I see the industriousness of the Hispanic workers. Who would they vote for? An old woman who wants to destroy the government and turn us into a socialist welfare state and promise them things for nothing when they'd rather make it on their own because they come from a culture of pride? Pride. Pride. A word you haven't heard about for a long time. Maybe I'll talk about pride for a few minutes. Donald Trump represents American pride. Do you understand that? And that appeals to an awful lot of people of all races, of all sexes or genders, however you want to put it, of all economic backgrounds. They want their pride restored. They don't want to walk around defeated. They don't want to look like Englishmen who are becoming strangers in their own country. Have you been to London? I haven't. I'm not allowed to go there. But an individual I know came from London recently. He lives there. And he said everyone walks around with their head down. They're ashamed. They're afraid to be English in their own country. That's what Hillary wants for you in America. She wants you to be ashamed if you're white. She talks about white privilege as though she herself is not of the most privileged class in America. Can you imagine anything like this? Getting away with that? But anyway, these are some of the reasons that Donald Trump is so popular. And as I say, I watched her last night during the so-called town hall. I expect anything from politicians. On one hand, I expect nothing. On the other hand, I expect anything from them. What she did last night hit a new low. It was like Winnie Mandela in South Africa preaching race hatred, throwing Coleman lighter fluid on a fire. Instead of tamping it down, she was trying to make the fire grow. She wanted a conflagration. It's as though she was a demon. Anything for another vote. So if you want to talk right now is the time. Let's go to the callers, 855-400-7282. I have to read you something on the national debt that my friend Craig Smith of Swiss America sent me because he's an expert on money. In 2009, he said the national debt was $10.6 trillion. It's probably hard for us to follow. We'll make it easy. It was $10 trillion. Today, the national debt is $19 trillion. Rounding off, Obama has increased debt in 7 years by $8.5 trillion. These are numbers directly off the national debt clock. Under Bush, January 01, $5.7 trillion. When he left, it was $10.6 trillion. First Bush ran up the debt, $4.9 trillion. Oh, no, Bush, too, ran up the debt, $4.9 trillion. That was a man I called a fiscal socialist. Obama ran up the debt, $8.5 trillion. Can you believe this? He ran up the debt like this. I don't know what Donald Trump will do about the debt. I have no idea that he'd ever discuss it. That I don't know. I'd like to hear what he has to say on that when the time comes down to it. Let's go to the callers. WSBA Radio in Pennsylvania. Corey, welcome to the Savage Nation. It's a great day for us, believe me. What do you have to say today?
I just want to know if you can dispel some of my concerns about a general election with Trump. I just feel like the Dems are stacking ammo against him, and they're just waiting until he gets the nomination to unload it. You know, they'll say, you know, one day he believes this, 2 years ago he believed that. You know, if you call him more, he just lashes out.
No, of course they're going to say he's a Pollyanna. That's a given because his enemies in the Republican Party have already said that. So there's nothing new about that. But his charisma and his pride and his energy and his force will override any of those concerns. That's my opinion. I mean, unless they're saving some huge scandal we know nothing about, which I doubt because I think they would have used it by now, don't you?
Yeah, I would think they would have, unless they're saving it for the nomination. That's the only thing I hear about.
But what can they say that we haven't heard or read? That he went bankrupt and he used lawyers? So what? I mean, we all know that. Okay. We all know that. But if you look around the landscape of America and the world, his name is on an awful lot of structures that he built. That's pretty self-evident that he's done things. He's actually created something. What in the world has Hillary Clinton given anybody? She's never had a job. She's been a government worker her whole life. One way or the other. She's been in government. She's an insider. How could she pretend she's an outsider? Where is her appeal? Yep. What, because if she's not a man, that makes her appealing? All right, that covers that one. WMAL, Washington, D.C. James, go ahead, please. You're next up.
I am a first-generation immigrant in the tank for Trump. I love Trump. I'm joyous that he won the Hispanic votes yesterday, proving the pundits on TV wrong, that immigrants, for some reason, don't like Trump. Dr. Savage, most immigrants, all right, understand Trump and like him privately. We don't say it out loud because of fear of being ridiculed by...
Of course, right. You'd be ashamed to say it to your friends and neighbors because they'd say, you're for him? You become one of them? So you'd never say it. But you see, the beauty of America is we have private ballots, secret ballots. You can vote quietly. No one knows what you did. That's why the unions are working right now to have ballots turned back to the 1900s again, where there were no secret ballots, where they would know who voted on what, so the people were afraid of the union bosses.
Yes. One thing I want most Americans to understand is this. We immigrants, we migrate here for one reason, for the greatness of the United States of America. We understand that. And Donald Trump is bringing it back. Because
where did you what country of origin do you come from?
I come from Ghana.
You're an African, but most Africans who come here are very different than what people may think. There's a lot of misconceptions about Africans, by the way, in America. I'm talking about Africans, highly educated, highly motivated. That's what I've seen.
Yes. And growing up, there was one thing that motivated us. Of course, I grew up in the 80s, so yes, Ronald Reagan was all over, West Africa. We liked him and all of that. And there was one thing that drew us here, made in America product. And now, when we go back
Can I ask you, what is your native language? What is the language you grew up speaking?
I grew up speaking 3 different languages, Krobo, Tree, and Ga.
And these are African dialects?
Yes, they are all African dialects.
I want the listener to understand how complicated what I'm asking this man really is. He grew up speaking 3 African dialects. He's on a talk radio show in the greatest country on the world, free to speak his mind in our native language, and he's doing it more eloquently than most politicians can do it. Think about that. I want to thank you, sir. I'm sending you a copy of Government Zero because I know that you can read it. And you can get a lot out of it. If you like Trump, you'll love Government Zero. I want to throw a question out there. So, Jim, leave a few open lines for this because I've been meaning to do this, and I haven't done it yet. I said in the beginning of the show that today is a victory day, a victory lap, because the Savage Nation ideas are now kind of become currency, common currency. Okay, that's a given. Borders, language, culture. One way or the other, it's a truth. I mean, you'll have the detractors saying it's not true. It doesn't matter what the detractors say. You always have them. The cyber bullies will always be there. I also said something in the beginning. I said Donald Trump grew up on the other side of the tracks in the same neighborhood I grew up in. And I said he has all his buildings to show for his life. And sometimes I get down on myself and I say, wait a minute. You've published 28, you've had 28 books published. You have several unpublished. And there are those who try to knock you for having been so prolific. That's how bad it's become. In other words, being prolific is now something wrong. But I'm quite prolific because it's what I do. And I said my books are my buildings. Those are my buildings. Imagine creating a mock-up of Manhattan and standing my books up on this silhouette of Manhattan. Those would be my high-rises, okay? Hopefully some of them will live a long time. I also hinted at something else. I said I believe, and I don't know whether it's related to Trump or not, I believe that fate has a bigger something in store for me than where I am in life right now. It's hard to say. I am not ready to walk off into the sunset. I am not ready to retire. I'm not ready to disappear. I'm not ready to just disappear from the airwaves. I'm not ready to disappear from the world of the written word. And I keep feeling intuitively that there's something bigger waiting for me, and I don't know what it is. So I will bring this question to my loyal listeners now, because I know many of you listen every day. And you've heard me through thick and through thin. And as I said earlier, through the darkest of times, through winters and summers and falls and springs, I have been espousing Borders, language, and culture. Sometimes I felt as though no one was listening. I felt as though I was wandering in a virtual desert. I felt like Moses wandering in the desert. The message had been lost. It had been forgotten. It's as though I was pulling up dry wells. No matter what I did, it was just a dry well. Now we hear the message suddenly resonating from the highest places on the campaign trail. And the message of Borders and language and culture, basically, that message is drowning out the hatred and the disharmony of the socialist Islamist left. We see that even immigrants are admitting to themselves that they're coming here for the American dream. And the American dream is not socialism. The American dream is not a government handout. The American dream is making a life for themselves on their own. They want to express themselves and be proud of what they did. That's the American dream that Donald Trump represents, in my opinion. So getting back again to what I said, that I feel fate has something larger in store for me, I will ask a question of my audience. If the day should come, and I don't know that it will, I don't even know if Donald will ever be on my show again, by the way. I'll tell you I don't know. I'll still support him. I'll still support him. It could be that his advisors have said, don't go on the Savage Nation, you don't need him anymore. I don't know what's going on. I don't talk to them every day. I've seen it before, and it could happen again. I don't know who's advising him, but I have a strange feeling that his advisors are like those of Romney. When I see that he's using people who tried in politics and failed, I say, oh, no, this is not good. So maybe he'll be on again. Maybe he won't. I'll still support him because his ideas are my ideas. I mean, we agree. Let's put it that way. Let's say the day comes that he is the nominee, and the day comes that there's a general election and he wins, and I get a call from someone that says, Donald Trump would like to meet with you. He'd like to know what you would like to do in the new government. Let's say that day came. I told you I'm not a bureaucrat. I couldn't do the job. I couldn't do it. If he made me the head of the biggest department in the country, I'd have to say no because I know I would fail at it. I just wouldn't do it. And I couldn't do it. So where does that leave me? If I'm not a bureaucrat, all I could do is be an advisor, correct? So which area of the government or which areas of the government do you think I, Michael Savage, would be best as an advisor to Donald Trump should that opportunity arise? I'll be back in a minute to take your calls right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUYCO.
They're doing everything they can to stop black people, Latinos, poor people, young people, people with disabilities from voting. It's a blast from the Jim Crow past. I thought we had won that battle back in the 1960s. To see it rear its ugly head
Hillary Clinton should be arrested for fanning the flames of class and hatred like this. I have never heard anything like this. She's a step away from Winnie Mandela with the burning tires around people's necks. Unbelievable how anyone could vote for this person. So now, the Daily News, which hates Donald Trump, has an editorial by Sean King, a writer, who says, King, here's why Donald Trump could become the next U.S. president. And he goes down the list. And he's well on his way to the 1,237 delegates. He needs to be the GOP nominee, blah, blah, blah. And he said, for months on end, the polling expert, Nate Silver, whoever he is, I think his father served corned beef at Katz's. He'd be lucky if he winds up serving French fries after this. Over and over again, this Nate Silver, the great Democrat pollster, said Trump would plummet in the polls, be overtaken by an establishing candidate. Nate, it's still not too late to get yourself a date with a real job, Nate. So he's saying Super Tuesday's coming up in only a few days, where voters in 13 different states will cast their ballots less than 6 days away. Rubio, Cruz, Kasich, and Carson will continue to fight on and split votes among each other. And it says polls and Las Vegas odds have Trump winning as many as 11 out of 13 of those states, with Cruz winning 2 and Rubio none. So in 6 days, he says, barring something catastrophic or earth-shattering in the Republican Party, Trump could already be the winner of 14 of the first 17 primaries and caucuses. So with that considered, we must accept that for the past 7 months, nearly every expert in the country said the situation we're now in would never and could never happen. Sean, you're wrong. I'm an expert in the country, more so than any of the experts that you rely upon. Michael Savage has been on the air for 21 years with the same exact message that Donald Trump is putting out. And the very same mud that is being slung at Donald Trump was thrown at me every step of the way. Every vile thing that you can think of was said about me. I've been attacked every which way, and it didn't stop me. I didn't let a single impediment stand in my way, nor does Donald Trump. So you look at the Daily News, I don't know, the hatred, one cover after another, Lord of the Pigs, Confederacy of Dunces, Antichrist. They hate Donald Trump. And what good does it do, all their hatred? It's not working. They ought to save some of their hatred for Hillary Clinton's vile race warfare. That's what they should talk about. The fake poverty of Hillary Clinton. The fake humility of Hillary Clinton. The false Christianity of Hillary Clinton. Those would be headlines worthy of a tabloid newspaper. But I noticed that you don't see any of that. All the brave men on CNN, they were dumbfounded last night. Sheridan Cooper, whatever his name is, Sherry Cooper, I don't know his name, Anderson. Well, he looked like a lost sheep walking around. He was wandering around with a lavalier microphone. He didn't know which way to look. He didn't know what to say. He had no idea. They were dumbfounded. They are dumbstruck by what's going on because they don't know what's going on, because they're out of touch with reality, as are the mainstream Republican and Democrat advisors and candidates. It's we the people who are being heard, the people who have been silenced. Agnew called them the silent majority. I have another name for you. I'll be back to tell you what it is.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Trump wins, Savage Nation rules. So where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? As I said, it's a very clear choice, and it's pretty clear to me why Trump is triumphing across America. Across all education levels. I don't mean you, of course, the cynic. You know better than everyone. Across races, age groups. And I said that I'd have a new phrase for you, which I thought of just now through inspiration. I went out for some air during the break, and I said, Agnew called this phenomenon the arising of the silent majority. Remember that? The silent majority? And I said now this is the reemergent majority. Never forget we still are the majority in this country. But what do you mean we? Who's we? That sounds exclusionary. I'll let you figure it out. We are still the majority in this country, but most of us haven't been excited by a candidate in many years. Now, having said that, I know many of you are not excited by Trump at all. You don't like him. You've been told he's no good, he's this, he's a phony, he's a that, the liberal. But eventually you're going to come around to realizing it's either him or Winnie Mandela. with the QVC jewelry. It's one or the other. You want either Winnie Mandela with the QVC jewelry, or you want somebody who just might make America great again and just might bring us together again by knocking a few heads together again. I guarantee a few things. If Trump becomes president, you're not going to see the ilk like Al Sharpton going in and out of the White House. He might go into the big house, but not the White House. You're never going to see people of that low nature allowed into the White House to soil it. Never. I can guarantee you're not going to see the level of, I have words for it that I can't use right now because I'll be misunderstood. The depression that I experience when I see how this president behaves, both on and off the political stage, sickens me. I don't think we're going to see Donald Trump on a golf course while they're laying a Supreme Court justice to rest. Do you? I don't think so. Oh, he may be loud and boisterous, and he may be bumptious and arrogant and all of this other stuff. But you know what? What you see is what you get. It's that simple. There's going to be no surprises. What you see is what you get, as opposed to the character in the White House now who may believe he was Mr. Nice Guy. And look what we have here, this despot. So I asked you a couple of questions in the last hour, and many of you are calling on it. It's a very straightforward show today. I'm very happy today because it's a victory lap for myself and for this program and for you, the audience. Remember, if you've listened to this show for any number of years, and many of you have, that's a loyal audience. It's a long, long haul. It's a very personal relationship, talk radio. It's not like television. And this is an extremely personal relationship, talk radio. We're together, family, so to speak. That's why I called the show The Savage Nation 22 years ago this March. And the theme of borders, language, and culture resonated with you. That's the main point. That's why you're hooked on the show. Maybe you don't like some of the things I say or some of the things I do. It doesn't matter. It's like family. You get used to it. You put up with it. Because fundamentally, you're unified with me on a message. That's really what it comes down to. If there was no unification through my message, you really wouldn't be here, and there would be no audience, and the show wouldn't be alive. It just wouldn't be here. So we're connected. It's like I said, like family. You don't like everyone in your family and everything that they do, but you're family, and you'd do anything for them, wouldn't you? If it comes down to it. That's what family is. That's what the Savage Nation is. And I feel that today we've been vindicated. Of all the days I've been in radio. Now, he's not president yet. He didn't even win the primaries. I get it. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's how I am. That's the kind of guy I am. You know, God sees the truth but waits. I see the truth and I don't wait. The phone number is 855-407-282. Frank on WABC. Go ahead, please. What's your topic?
Michael, with your great insight into human nature and the human spirit, I can think of no one better than to try to build bridges between religions and races in this country for Donald Trump. I think you have the insight to carry that off. And what's taken the FBI so long to ask for an indictment of Hillary? They got enough to indict her 5 times. Thank you, Michael.
Well, thanks, Frank. You know, he said something I have to think about. He says that if I were asked to do it, I could advise the Trump presidency, if it became that, on how to unite religions. I never thought about that, and I can't even respond to it intelligently. I'd have to think about it. It's a very interesting proposition. I don't even know that is there such a position, or is there such an office? I don't even know what that is. I mean, you know, what is that? How do you do that? Just give speeches on love and kindness? I think it transcends all religions, by the way, except for one. It seems to me there's a common theme in all religions, except for one. All religions teach the same thing, which is, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. One religion teaches do the other, and do them as fast as you can. But the fact of the matter is, all religions say the same thing. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That summarizes most religions. Now, forget the practices and the this and the that and the wafers and the cats and the capels and the capillaries and the caps and the gowns and the this and the that and the crosses and the smoke and the stars and the moon and the this and the that. If a religion is a good religion and it has a positive influence upon the people who attend their houses of worship or read the literature, it teaches love at the end of the day and kindness. What do you think it teaches? And by and large, all religions do that. That would be my beginning. Simplicity, patience, compassion. Simplicity, patience, compassion. Of course, you could get into the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into the awareness of people, but I'm not a guru. Many years people have said to me, Savage, you're very captivating. How come you were never one of those guys in the 70s that set up like an est? You could have done that. You have a booming voice. You're extremely charismatic. You can move audiences. You were given the gift. How come you didn't become one of those guys with like a big foundation or a big ashram? The answer is because I don't want it. Because I embrace simplicity at the end of the day. In that regard, I do follow the rules that were laid down, or the edicts were laid down by Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher. I like simplicity. I remember through my lean years, permit me now in my third hour, I go into a different state of mind, a different form. There were many lean years of my life, for various reasons, not to complain, just people go through rich and up and downs in their lives. There were lean years, and it's not like I always had the faith that I'd come through it. I knew that I had to fight and stay alive and keep going for the children. That's all I knew. For myself, I didn't care at certain points. I was ready to give up. I was ready to give up. I couldn't take it anymore. But I would look at the children sleeping in bed. I said, I got to do it for them. I can't do it. I can't fail for them. I cannot let them have a loser father, no matter what. I can't do it to them. And then I learned to read a lot of philosophy late at night. I couldn't sleep. I was worried about making money. I didn't know if I could pay the mortgage. I mean, it was horrible. Things that just never should have happened to me. Because I was man-child in the promised land, an immigrant son. I did everything right. And the communists in the country said white men need not apply. The ACLU had the nerve to say, some people will just have to put their futures on hold so others may advance. Well, I was one of those who had to put his future on hold so others may advance. So I stayed up a lot of nights. I couldn't sleep. And I remember reading a self-help book in the 70s it was. And it said, no one ever died from a lack of sleep. They died from worrying about not sleeping. That was the first light bulb that went off in my head about not worrying about not sleeping. And then another self-help book said to me, there are so many things you could do in 2 minutes. And this fellow wrote down in a self-help book things you could do in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. At the time, he said, you could write a letter to a friend. Think of what you could do in 3 minutes with emails now, right? You can walk around the block. You can gaze at the stars. You can look at well, I got out a star chart. I used to love astronomy as a young kid. I learned many of the constellations all over again. I would sit on my deck at 3 a.m. and look at the stars. And I would look at the constellations and I would learn the names of the stars. So what, am I going crazy? No, I mean, it retunes you back into things through simplicity. And then I was reading philosophy, Chinese philosophy in translation, and one of the things I read was, because I was kind of poor, hanging on there, and I read things like eating late is better than eating meat. This was the poetry or the philosophy of impoverished scholars in ancient China. They write things like that. I was so delighted by it. Eating late is better than eating meat. Things like that, Robert. Does that still resonate? Does that have any meaning? You know what I'm saying. Meaning having leisure and time was what it was all about. I'm still the same person. And now I'm tied to a clock. I eat during a show sometimes, like every day, because it's just the way it is. And during the break, I'm like scarfing down food, and I'm saying to the guys, how much time? 3 minutes. And I'm just gobbling. And so just a few minutes ago, I said to my assistant, I said, Ryan, one day I'm going to wake up and I'll be able to finish a meal without saying, how much time do I have? I'll actually be able to sit and eat a meal. And boy, will I be bored. Because just eating a meal is not my goal in life. So what I'm saying is simplicity, emptiness is beautiful. Patience, most important thing on earth, patience. And I lack patience. Oh, do I lack patience. But it's one of the greatest treasures to cultivate. Another one that's lost in America today is compassion. I still have it. I don't know that I have it most of the time. I sometimes think I've lost my humanity, but I don't. And I know it's simply by how I react to people in my life when they need me. I may be pretty gruff to people who are tough and don't need me. Bristles and porcupiney. But when I have a friend in need, I know what I do, and I know where it comes from. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just, reflecting today. That's all. I'm not trying to prove anything. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment, Lao Tzu. He who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. The wicked leader is he who the people despise. The good leader is he who the people revere. The great leader is he the people say, we did it ourselves. How's that one for Lao Tzu in ancient Chinese philosophy? I'll read it again. The wicked leader is he who the people despise. Hello, Barry. The good leader is he who the people revere. When have we had one of those? Dwight D. Eisenhower? Like 50 years ago? The great leader is he who the people say, we did it ourselves. We're waiting for that leader. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUYCO. National consciousness through the victories of Donald Trump. Just play it. That's from Patton, isn't it? 21 years, almost 22. My message has been the same. Consistent. Borders, Language, Culture. Last 3 books, if you've read them. Borders, Language, Culture. My solutions for saving America. Many of these bullet points have been and are being used by the Trump campaign. To the credit of Donald Trump, by the way. I'm sure some of them arose spontaneously because he's a man of common sense, as am I. But I will take credit for being the first in the media to back himself vociferously because his ideas were similar to mine. That was the only reason. I certainly wouldn't take credit for getting out the vote because I didn't. I did not electioneer for Donald Trump. But I am sort of the architect of Trump's messaging. No one can refute that. Everyone understands the realities of what Trump is doing and why he is popular. They understand what his message is. Never mind what the enemies of Trump are saying. They said the same thing about me, and they still do. So today I'm all over the place in one way and really focused in another. And before I was reading some philosophy from Lao Tzu and telling you that I was a big philosophy reader when I was in a certain stage of my life. But I remember certain things, and I read a lot of Plato. You know, Plato wrote Plato's Republic. That's where I got the idea for the Savage Nation. Did you know that? But many people don't know that. How'd you come up with the Savage Nation? Because I was a reader of Plato's Republic, and I changed Republic to Nation. So this is the Savage Nation you're listening to. We are the reemergent majority in this country. We've been silenced, beaten, reviled, spit upon by Hillary Clinton, called racist, called sexist, called every name under the sun, but we're not. We are the Americans that they hate and fear. Plato wrote, dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggregated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. Plato also wrote, we can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. That's what this show is about. This show is not about darkness, it's about light. And the real tragedy of America right now is that we have prophets of doom, prophets of hatred like Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and then we have prophets of lightness, and shall I say the word success? That's what Trump is selling. He's selling lightness and success. I realize he's not pure enough for those who read textbooks on purity. But that's what he's selling. He's selling basically the idea that we can succeed as people and succeed as a nation. That's the whole thing. Now, I don't know about the faith issue. I know that I watch fights and I watch warfare, and I've watched fights and warfare and read about it all my life. And I know that those who are armed with faith are the stronger warriors. I've seen it in the boxing ring. I've seen it all over the sports arena. I'm always so moved when I see an athlete, especially when I see a black athlete get down on his knees and pray to Jesus before a game or after a victory of some sort or another, and all of the PC minds go crazy. Like, did he do that? Did he pray? Did he cross himself? How dare he? Because they're armed with faith. You understand what I'm saying to you? Now, I know Trump's not that kind of guy. He's not a Bible pounder. He's not going to be one of those with the Bible and the cross. And maybe that's fine because that's up to us anyway. But it's clear to me that events are changing all of us in this country right now. You know, that's what's happening right now. So if you want to call the show, the phone number is 855-400-7282. Let's go to the callers on the Savage Nation. Oh, God, there's so many good callers. I don't know which one to take in 30 seconds. KSFO, San Francisco, Debbie. Topic and statement, fire away.
Michael, you would be absolutely perfect in science. science, the academia papers that come out, the journals are rigged. There are so many brilliant scientists out there that never get a chance.
Absolutely, they are the equivalent of the outcasts because they're not tied into the system. There's a lot of young and old scientists who can't even get papers published, let alone get a teaching position. That would all change if I were to advise the NSF or the NIH. Believe me, I would make certain that there's science again and real medical research in this country. Stay on the line. I want to ask you something. Savage Nation, at least we're on the road to happiness. Plato wrote, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Does that ring a bell? I'll read it again. Ancient Greek philosopher Plato. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Does that ever tell you what we're going through right now? Can anyone listening to this show say that we're ruled by our superiors? Can anyone listening to this show really say Obama is a superior human being? I don't have to go down that road, do you? Do I? I don't know. So we're listening to a different song. Listening to a different song. We're hungering, we're thirsting for a different leadership, a different government. We're thirsting for it, we're craving it. And there's an awful lot of us, from the silent majority to the re-emergent majority. Independents are crossing over. They're not going to vote for her, the woman who specializes in turning race against race, poor against rich. They don't like her. She's like an imbalanced animal. She's like an imbalanced creature. And she can only foster more imbalance in the society. We feel it. We can sense her imbalance. She's like someone who has come up from the world below. Sort of like a vessel full of injustice. And who wants to bring all of the evils of the world to the surface in order to thrive as a demagogue. Maybe I'm speaking in too flowery a language. But I listened to that woman last night for a while until I almost wanted to break the television. She was like a Winnie Mandela, a step away from the burning tires, the necklacing. I don't even know if I should play it. She's thriving on pure hatred, right? She's running on pure hatred. Trump's not running on hatred. Think of his motto. Make America great again. I don't see any hatred in that, do you? Unless you hate America, I guess that's hateful. Make America great again is a bad thing to say. And listen to her. Listen to clip 08. Robert, please play 08 of Hillary Clinton.
I see so much anger and fear and bitterness. Some of it's being played out in our political system right now. The kind of language that's being used, violent images, threats against people. It is deeply troubling to me because we have to try to unite our country, not divide it, if we're going to deal with a lot of the challenges. All right,
you're Miss Purity. You're going to unite us while speaking about you were asked by blacks in the audience last night. You talked about white privilege. Then you talked about how blacks can't get ahead in America when we have a black president and a black attorney general and so many black people in so many high positions. You know, don't talk to me about bringing people together, Mrs. Clinton. You're like a creature from the world below, bringing up nothing but evil. Bringing imbalance to this society when we want an educated and disciplined America again. We don't want the garbage in the streets anymore. The human garbage and the physical garbage. We're sick of it. We'd like to have an orderly and beautiful America again. We don't want the squeegee men and the bums and the rapists and the muggers and the knifers in New York City. We don't want those defecating in the streets of San Francisco to get away with it. We want them clobbered over the head by a cop and thrown into a deep holding cell. We are sick of being run over by the bums and the lowlifes in this country. Make no mistake about it. That's what we want, a beautiful, educated, disciplined America. We don't want the filth that the Democrat socialists seem to specialize in and promote. Of course there's anger in America. Of course there's anger in America. How much of this filth can we take? The sewer pipe of Hollywood. Instead of talking about the excesses of Wall Street, Mrs. Clinton, who you live off, the Clinton Foundation is not exactly a charity that gives away much money, is it now, Mrs. Clinton? Why don't you talk about the sewer pipe of Hollywood? Why don't you talk about the sewer pipe of Hollywood that supports Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton to the nth degree? Tell us about that sewer pipe instead of talking about the reality TV star and how angry he is. He reflects the anger of America, my friends. Make no mistake about it. And all of us know that things can be better. And we all know it in ourselves that if we only had a leader, we could help make it better. We don't need laws to tell us how to act well. It's only the bad people who need laws because they're going to find a way around them. Good people basically are good. They do the right thing. It's the bad people who read the laws and study the laws to find a way around them. That's why Barack Obama, in my opinion, became a constitutional lawyer to see how he can get around the Constitution. Now, remember what I said at the beginning of this little soliloquy. Plato wrote it best when he said one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Now, I'm not in politics, but I really am in politics. We are what's known as, what is that in England? They were calling them ministers without portfolio. We in talk radio who have lasted so long and thrived are ministers without portfolio. We have a large following and we influence the dialogue. We influence the nature of our society. Now, for many years, we've had no influence at all, those of us on this side of the aisle. None. It's as though we lost everything. It was a depressing time. For the first time in so many years, we have hope again. I couldn't even count the years that I have felt that all of my years were a waste. I was walking around feeling that all the books, all the years, I said, what good did it do? When you wind up with a scoundrel like this in the White House who gets away with anything he wants to get away with, a absolute naked tyranny coming out of the White House with almost no opposition. And we started to feel that there was no hope. And then we took a look at this, the lineup of candidates. With very few exceptions, there was not much hope there. The RNC dodos who were going to do the same thing all over again, the same thing that Boehner did to us, McConnell is doing to us. We didn't want it again, and we started to give up. And all of a sudden, there comes this brash man, this brash, in-your-face man. Build a wall, he says. Stop them from coming in and doing to this country what they're doing. So right away, they make him into what he isn't. I've heard it all before. You say one word, you raise your voice, and you say one word against the excesses of the open border, and right away they pin a label on you that's completely false because they want that open border. And he didn't keep, went on, doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down, kept going, and the longer he hammered the border and the wall, the larger his brand became, bigger his brand became, because that's what the American people want more than anything. I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. People want a secure border, and they want it yesterday. They want the Border Patrol to be rearmed and reinvigorated, and they want the flow going south, not north, in plain English. If you were to make this whole campaign about one thing, it would be about the borders. Do you know that? If you were to take everything else off the table, sweep it all aside, you know what the whole campaign of Trump is about? Immigration. The border, border, border. He also didn't say kick Muslims out of America. That's a lie. That's the big lie put out by the Democrat socialist Islamist machine. He never said that. What he says was, I would stop the immigration of Muslims into this country until we can figure this thing out. Now, what is wrong with that? When we know from the European experience that many of those who are coming in as, quote, refugees are actually terrorists in hiding. They threw away their uniforms and their guns, and they came in on the boatload. And amongst the boatloads of refugees coming in from Syria, there are murderous Islamists who are, in case you don't know it, raping and killing inside the refugee camps. They're beating up Christians. They're raping women. You don't know that, do you? You don't want to hear any of that. You want to put your head in the sand, but you ought to take your eyes out of the dirt and look at the light, because that's what's going to happen here if Barry gets away with flooding us with Syrian refugees, most of whom are military-aged men of the Muslim faith. That's what he was talking about. Very specifically, that's what he was addressing at the time that he said ban immigration by Muslims. Now, of course, it was completely distorted by the enemies of the truth for obvious reasons, and I don't have to go down the road of why. So this is a very big day. Yes, it's 3 victories in a row. It's not the end of the road. There's a long primary, but Super Tuesday's coming. It looks like he's going to win that one, and then it's going to be a big, long road to the general election. It'll be Trump versus whoever, probably her unless they indict her. And I don't see how that Shouldn't happen. She must own the government. She must own justice, sure. She must own, that's FBI, so she owns that, part of the Democrat machine. So if we had a fair, independent FBI, there's no question she would have been indicted by now for what she's done with the email scandals, and she probably would have stepped down. I mean, Petraeus did 1/1000th of what she's done, and look what they did to that great man. Speaking of which, by the way, he should be the running mate for Donald Trump. I was thinking about who the VP candidate should be. It should be a general of some kind. High general. Someone we know. Petraeus is a highly educated, highly disciplined, highly brave, very well, many medals. You look up his history as a warrior, you'll know why they went after him. You'll see exactly why Obama destroyed him. Look very carefully into why they went after Petraeus. What he did was illegal, for sure, but that's not the reason they brought him down, as did Obama, the dictator, bring down so many other generals and admirals, because he did not want anyone opposing him inside the military, because he knew what he was going to do. We're now at the sad state of him telling us that we need transsexuals in the military in order to make it diverse. Can you believe a thing like this? So it was one step at a time by the evil, devious, radical, hateful left. One step at a time, carefully planned. The villains that they are. The villains that they are. They took down any opposition. Strategically removed every general and every admiral who could have blown the whistle on Benghazi. They got rid of them. I wrote about it in 2 books ago. I named them. Some of you read it, some of you didn't. They actually have names. Does the name General Ham ring a bell to you? African-American 4 or 5-star general with 29 years of service, thrown out of the military by Barry Obama right after Benghazi. I think you can figure out why. How come you didn't read about that in the newspaper? How come you didn't hear about it from Anderson Cooper or the others, the brave boys in the media? Why don't you see pictures of the African-American general whose lives were destroyed by Barry Obama for political reasons? He conducted a coup, for God's sakes. You never heard of General Ham, did you? Well, you heard about him now. Go look him up. Find out why he was fired. No reason. Find out why so many fine admirals were thrown out of the military, replaced by idiots who can't even drive a motorboat with a single engine on it. Take a look at who Obama's put in charge of the Air Force and the Navy. It's laughable, if it wasn't so sad. And we all pray to God that Trump wins. And all of these great men who were thrown out will be brought back in and be given huge bonuses to re-sign. And all of the frauds will be thrown out of the military overnight. Just throw them out. Get rid of them. All of those advanced by Barry and the illegitimate left, throw them out of the military. Get rid of them. Get rid of the Politburo. You know, during the height of the Soviet era, do you know that on every warship there was a political officer, a KGB officer, even if it was a submarine deep below the seas? Do you know that they had a political officer on the submarine whose job was to go around snooping on all of the sailors to listen if they were politically correct enough, to see if the sailors were saying anything against the government? And we now have the same thing under Barry Obama. He has put the equivalent of KGB spies in every branch of government and in every branch of the military. This is the Savage Nation. Be proud. I'll be back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or Swiss America. For me, there's not enough time. All right, welcome back, the reemergent majority that listens to the Savage Nation and is cheering Donald Trump. And an article finally came out. It was just written by Bob on WorldNet Daily. The headline is Media Star, I'm the Architect of Trump's Message. It'll be on michaelsavage.com momentarily. He says, Make America Great Again means borders, language, and culture. I'm going to read the article. That's what I do. Talk radio icon Michael Savage says GOP presidential frontrunner Donald Trump is winning because he's pushing the ideas that Savage himself has been bringing to the American public for years already. In a monologue today, Savage, heard by many millions of listeners and syndicated in, I think, 250 markets, said the Savage Nation has now risen to national prominence through the victories of Donald Trump. For 21 years, my message has been borders, language, culture, Savage told his listeners. My last 3 to 4 books, if you look at them, my solutions for saving America. Many of these bullet points or talking points have been and are being used by the Trump campaign to the credit of Donald Trump and, of course, to the benefit of the United States of America. And I'm going to take credit, not for getting out the vote, I certainly wouldn't take credit for that, but for being the architect of Trump's messaging. On Trump's campaign positions page, he lists U.S.-China trade reform, VA reforms, tax reform, Second Amendment rights, and immigration reform as priorities. On the day he announced he was campaigning for the GOP nomination for president, Mr. T pointed out that the illegal aliens coming into the U.S. across the southern border sometimes bring crime with them. Savage 3 years ago responded to a listener on that issue. Confronted by the assertion that immigration is needed, Savage pointed out 3 years ago, quote, wouldn't a sane and rational society select the types of immigrants they want rather than a willy-nilly wholesale amnesty for 30 million, many of whom don't even work, close quote? Savage then cited 3 years ago the 30% of prisoners in the United States who are illegal aliens. Savage said his message has been echoed by the Trump campaign. There is no way to refute that. Everyone who understands the realities of what Trump is doing and why he is popular understands it's related to what I have written going back to several books now, he said. Savage, the recipient of the Freedom of Speech Award from Talkers Magazine, famously is the only member of the U.S. media ever blacklisted and banned from a Western nation. You see, in 2009, Britain put Savage on a list of 16 people banned from entry because the government believed their views might provoke violence. But the UK never specified which statements it found to be dangerous. On the Second Amendment, Trump says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon, period. Savage said in 2011, quote, only an armed nation will survive. On tax reform, Trump, who now has won early voting contests in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada, advocates for tax relief for the middle class and simplifying the tax code. Savage is the author of Trickle Up Poverty, which charges that Obama is like a leftist adolescent who, quote, takes apart a priceless watch that was carefully passed down to him and cannot be put it back together again. We're doing a victory lap, Savage Nation. Ride the wave. Be proud. The ideas you've listened to for all these years are now common currency in America and in the media. It's only going to get bigger and bigger. Thank you for listening.